Thank you, Ahad Ahmat. Excuse me, the Ahad Matat Afaf Amun, and welcome everybody to another Wu-Sabat Outformation class. Appreciate the introduction, and we are doing the main class for today. I was there, which is here, part 9. So if there are any issues with the sound or anything of that nature or the visuals, please drop a note in the chat, and your facilitator or moderator for today will just alert me to that. So I think Zoom has been updated, so we just make sure that certain settings are as they were before. If that's not the case, then just please give us a shout so we can get that feedback from you all. Now, so probably because I think a couple of weeks ago in part 8 there was a little bit of questions that we maybe need to do a bit of recap. So I think most of the parts we are a bit behind on the YouTube updates, but most of the parts are on our YouTube channel and certainly on our Facebook channel for parts 1 to 8. I don't want to recap the whole of it because obviously for those who have been here for those early parts, then certainly would feel like that we're going over the same sort of things, but we'll do a bit of a recap today, just based on I think the sort of ending of the last class that we did a couple of weeks ago, just to set some context before we get into what we want to talk about in some detail today. So this is a Paa Taraq, which means the way in the Sabat language. Yeah, and a series of scrolls referred to, or what we refer to, I suppose, the hereafter doctrine, which the brother Aha touched upon in some detail when he showed you about obviously what was being taught from 1970 down to the year 2000. Yeah, so which was the end of their 6,000-year rule. The end of the so-called devil's rule, if you're speaking from a biblical perspective. And then we now moved into the second 30 years. Yeah, each of the different elders is considered to be given a 1 hour symbolically to convey the necessary information in our day and time, obviously, which is to transform us obviously back from mortals, transforms from mortals back into deities again, back that deity mind, once again for us as Nagara or Negroid people, and for those others who are obviously interested and respect our culture as it is in the form of Wu-Sabat, the science of sciences, and the unifying force. All races on the planet have their own spiritual sciences, and that is a spiritual science obviously for the Nagara or Negroid, which helps to unify us mentally, of course, and then the physical unity follows. And all the great teachers that we've had have always talked about our strength, of course, being in our unity. And now in the hereafter doctrine, which is basically after the devil's rule ended, hereafter, here on earth, after that 6,000-year period, or their 6,000-year period ended, then we moved into the second half of now, where you'd be learning about your stuff. Do you understand? Yeah, our story as opposed to his story. And more importantly, the cause that cause and effect. So most are stuck in cause and effect, but we're interested also about in the cause that cause and effect. Yeah, so we're really stepping into the darkness and the blackness, which some may have considered, some in their doctrine consider evil, but obviously we consider it obviously the origin, or what we would classify as existence. You understand, which is made up primarily, well, not just up primarily, but totally of space, matter and time. Those three things are inseparable, can't have one without the other in terms of the formulation of what is referred to existence and the world of things, yeah, as opposed to some things, yeah, SUM things, as opposed to the world of things. Yeah, we start to delve into the world of quantum physics and all that sort of stuff, as they have classified it as today. Now, I was there, which is here, which is the Paa Taraq that we've basically been dealing with today. Is dealing with certain events that took place around about 12,000 or so years ago in the last 24,000 year cycle. Yeah, but has obviously a significant impact into the realities of what we're maybe dealing with today, which have not been uncovered prior to the master teacher really making it plain yeah, with all of our eyes being open, mind's eye and our two physical eyes. Probably one of the reasons why is, our 135 stretch in AdMax as we seek to get him free, because of some of those secrets that are being uncovered, which are always really in front of our face, but were blinded through because of the way in which knowledge had been pitched, understood, the way in which we've been blindsided or blindsighted, yeah, let's say it that way, by way of the three, particularly monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three frogs, as they refer to in Revelations. You understand? So this is why, as I say, our minds have been almost, as I say, dulled, pacified, yeah, and we couldn't see clearly in relation to the things that were taking place. Now, we spent part 1 to 8 pretty much explaining to you various different groups, yeah, of extraterrestrials that have been involved and sitting behind a lot of the titles that have been used in the religious degrees. You understand? God, Lord, Most High, all these different terminologies, etc., from books that were, translated several hundred years ago, from copied from the Sumerian tablets and English, Gilgamesh epics, so on and so forth. Yet, as I say, nobody really questioned who was sitting in these seats behind these titles. Yeah, because God is a title, Lord is a title, the Almighty, all these are titles or attributes, as they refer to them more so in the Islamic degree, yeah, but that can be attributed to many different types of individuals or beings. You understand? It doesn't, human beings in their mind may have a definition or description or idea, you understand, which of what God is, and then we get confused because then when you put the words my against it, you understand, my God, my this, my that, then whatever the definition is in the book, yeah, which you learnt it from originally, then that definition then gets twisted, yeah, and even more confused, where the person says, well, that's my this, my that, or that's my translation, which they really say my Bible, but it's really my translation, do you understand, or my interpretation, my this, my that. So you can't really get to a factual position once somebody then throws in or is standing on nothing but opinion. You understand? But an opinion not even based on a factual position, but an opinion based on someone else's interpretation of what was written down. And as we've made the point, clearly, oldest does not mean original. Yeah, so you can have an old of something, that doesn't mean you have the original. And if you don't have the original, then we're not dealing with facts. We're dealing with interpretations. Now, as I say, you've learned to trust or been taught to trust in the institution oftentimes, and whatever that institution then produces, you then trust the output or the result of that. Do you understand? So, like in schools, for example, and we've given this example many times before, people will send their children to a school, into the school system, yes, and when you send your child into the school system, you have to provide ID, do you understand? You have to confirm who the child is, etc., that it's your child, so on and so forth. You understand? When you register, you've got to provide all this information to register your child for school. But you are programmed in a way where you trust that institution, and then you leave your child there for, however many hours, and probably the predominant part of the week that they're awake, understand, they're in the school system, and you've trusted that particular institution. At no point for the majority of the people who are parents on this call did you ask to see the headmaster or headmistress's qualifications. At no point did you ask to see the teacher's qualifications. At no point did you ask, can I have the ID of the people that are going to be teaching my child? You understand? And check their ID to make sure that who the person is, you understand, is who they say they are. Yeah, but you love your children. You understand? You care for them in the greatest ways, but Yeah, you put your child in you trusted the institution. You didn't do your due diligence and check individuals. You understand? Now, there's other things in life where you may well do that due diligence, but in this particular instance, for what you consider to be most precious to you, you didn't do the due diligence because they didn't teach you how to do that. Yeah, and so therefore you don't act upon those things. You trust the institution. Yeah, and so this is what it shows, is that you're not thinking in your right mind. Now, moreover, some people might say, for example, what the qualifications that teacher should have. Should they be morally upstanding? Should they be, a good people? Well, irrespective of whether they should or shouldn't be, you didn't do those checks. But if you find out something, for example, I don't know, let's say that the teacher who's teaching your children, you found out that they, something crazy, they dressed up as Sesame Street characters, you understand? And go and deal in sexual orgies on their personal time, for example. Yeah, and you found out about this, you'd be outraged. Yeah, and say, I don't want that person teaching my child, you understand? But the point is that if it was an important qualification as to the person's sexual proclivities or whatever, or why didn't you do the check up front? Yeah, so the reality is you're a hypocrite, as we all are hypocrites. Yeah, because we pick and choose when the checks are supposed to take place. Do you understand? Now, Wu-Sabat is designed obviously to correct that mindset so that we basically are at least have an interrogating mind to all things within our atmosphere, sphere, do you understand, existence, etc., for the benefit of our soul. Because our ancestors didn't build pyramids on faith and belief, and certainly didn't build pyramids placing their trust in others. They place their trust within natural nature. They place their trust in their ancestors. Do you understand? They place their trust in their ancestors, and they were highly connected with what would be considered today unseen forces. Do you understand? But really, not really unseen, perceived maybe, but not seen. Do you understand? Because we know we come from that darkness. You look up there in the vastness of space and existence. Do you understand? But our doctrine takes us, you understand, above or into outer space and then into inner space. Do you understand? So we're interested in going even beyond that, as I say, to the cause and effect, because that's where we came from. Yeah, as animists. Yeah, we deal with our origin from the soul first. You understand? So we're dealing with energy. And when we discussed in some detail in the previous class, we were talking about or uncovering this real game of religion, which is all about energy. It's all about energy, and how, as I say, you as the originators have stood, the source of all of existence, which we see here, do you understand, as the sons and daughters, or daughters and sons of Wu-Sabat, you understand, and sons and daughters of the sons or sons itself, which are in fact Paa Taraq, or the overseers, as we would describe them, and has how our ancient Egyptian ancestors described them, understood. It's all about energy. And how that energy, how you can be tricked out of your position, so to speak, and direct that energy to empower forces that subsist and feed off of the living. You understand? Because the dead, understand, dead just doesn't mean non or expired life as we would have it today. It also can mean low force or low energy. Understand? And respecting or talking about beings who must subsist off of the living in order to survive. This is the science of religion as opposed to the art of religion. How they redirect, or generate negative energy first and foremost, but then how they redirect your energy to empower the very forces that are keeping you suppressed. You understand? And so oftentimes this is the game that's being played here. And producers versus consumers. You understand? There was some discussion at the back end of the last class where a question was asked about, children being kidnapped and things of that nature, and the world not really paying attention. And let's be honest, in our society, if it doesn't come through social media, let's say, or the television, broadly speaking, other than in your set locality, how would you really know what's going on? You understand? You haven't got you haven't got a situation where you've got visibility of a lot of things outside of your own sphere. Now, if obviously you've got international connections and things of that nature, then you may get an inkling of what's going on in other parts of the world. But if you're not there, how do you know? You only know what they're beaming through the television or the visuals or whatever, and they pick and choose, what they choose to show, isn't it? In the UK, for example, if you were to watch the main or primary news channels, for example, like BBC, ITV, and Sky, let's say Sky News, for example, it's interesting that how is it that if news is generally supposed to be describing things that are new or spontaneous, if you were to flick through these particular channels, oftentimes, broadly speaking, I don't know what percentage, but broadly speaking, they've always got the same stories, that are all being reported from these different news channels. So if a government spokesman, for example, wants to come and speak on a particular issue or some launch of some policy or whatever, you generally find that even though it's 3 different companies, 3 different mediums or whatever, the person's appearing, on each of the 3 different channels with the same or similar type of message. So a lot of that medium is already pre-prepped, pre-programmed, pre-selected, for what's going to be shown. Very rarely is you see new news or live things necessarily that are going on. Do you understand? And even then, if there's a live thing that's happening, what happens, generally speaking, is on all the channels being broadcast as if it's a serious incident or event. So you only get a certain person's perspective, i.e. the producer or whoever's directing these programs, view and perspective of the world. And it's the same thing, obviously, with these various different religions, you understand? And as the master teacher expressed, politicians and politics are the new gods of the environment that you find yourself in today on this planet. So what we wanted to do is do a little bit of a recap, but rather than go back over what we had discussed before, I'll probably just use some other scrolls and books just to make that point, because I think we were getting into more of, as I say, the cause and effect, not necessarily some of the hype around certain subject areas that we were talking about. Now, we were explaining to you before we were getting into the detail of this Paa Taraq I was there, which was here part 1, which we will get into reading today, because I think we've set the background of what was taking place. We gave you an overview in parts 1 to 8 of the different groups of extraterrestrials that were involved. So this who's sitting in the seat behind these titles of God, Lord, etc. And as I say, in the first 30 years of uncovering the spell, with the master teacher uncovering the spell from us and getting us to really question things again, because prior to that it wasn't questioning, and that's why a lot of the books you see in those early days were in fact questions, isn't it? What and where is hell? Do you understand? Are there black devils? You understand? For example, I don't know, other questions that were being asked. Who rolled the stone? Do you understand? If it was the Jesus story. So the books in themselves were questions, because those mentally dead people, i.e. us, were so dumbfounded we wasn't really questioning anything. So we had to just be taught how to question again. Now the problem is, if you come along as a teacher and you teach particularly black people how to question, then you know what happens? They question you, they don't question all Yeah, so you've been taught how to question again. You should question all. Yeah, including those of you've been pre-programmed not to question. So you don't question, generally speaking, or are programmed to hold the Caucasian, yeah, or the Mukasu accountable. Yeah, that's part of your programming. Yeah, you don't. So you'll hold your own people accountable, but you won't hold all or everybody else accountable, at least to the same or greater standard based on actions, isn't it? So you should be less trusting, I should say. You should be less trusting of Mukasu sources based on history, not based on hate. Yeah, based on what's been done. Yeah, not based on hate. Based on what is still being done today, not based on hate. Yeah, so that's how you should be framed, but you're programmed otherwise. Yeah, but yet you hate your own, you're programmed to hate your own, so you'll question your own if your own question you, but don't hold, let's say, others accountable to the same standard, when in actuality, they are programmed, you understand, to not trust you in any circumstance or situation, irrespective of your actions. A lot of the time, overstood, yeah, and so in a society where one should be innocent before proven guilty as the minimum standard of justice, yeah, by way of perception and programming, yeah, a lot of people with whose freckles are too close, it's the other way around, isn't it? You're guilty by proving yourself innocent. Do you understand? You're judged irrespective of your individual action. Oh, well, I need to get to know the person, and then maybe that changes. But even then, outside of certain environments, it's still the same. So, and this is part of the programming that's happened through their television. So we've been brain dirtied, where others have been brainwashed. So what was taking place in this regard when there was no television? You understand? When there were no modern media sources as you have them today, well, how was it being played back then? Because certainly there were reports, there was records, there was so various different things that shaped the world as we know it, you understand, in various different ways and guises. And so what was taking place back then has helped to inform the society that we see today. So nonetheless, this is showing that there were, of course, influencing factors, as we know that the Bible, yeah, modern day Bible, let's say, was at one time, I don't know if it is now till today, but the biggest, certainly, piece of literature sold on the planet, distributed around the planet, in its various different versions and forms. And so human beings, in terms of one of the capabilities or characteristics of us as a race, yeah, of excuse me, different species, and I think it's talked about in the book Who Lived Before the Adam and Eve story, yeah, one of the Supreme Mathematics series. Check that out from the United Sapiens Worldwide website or your local All Eyes in Egypt store. You understand, was certain groups of extraterrestrials were interested in human beings, a collective, what I describe it as imagination or mindset, yeah, that they had the ability as a collective to simply change their environment or reshape their environment simply by thinking about it. You understand, this was the collective power of the mind. Master teachers also spoken about this, but certain groups, as I say, were interested in that power and obviously how it could be shaped, in a sense, or developed in us as a race of people. So obviously for the betterment of the environment, but maybe for others, how it could be manipulated as well. And so in that, you're seeing a scripture, yeah, setting out a script or how things are supposed to go. So sometimes you've got to consider, yeah, had we never encountered how much of the reality that we read in the book is now the external reality for us. So, excuse me, did one influence the other? Do you understand? So when you're looking at, okay, well, this book predicted such and such events taking place, yeah, was it a case of that these events already happened and the book was informing, yeah, it was written in the future and then brought back to the past or the present to inform what is taking place now? Or Was it that the book itself, you understand, in the subconscious minds of various different human beings, if we collect enough people reading it, it would then shape the future? Yeah, because people have been programmed with this particular set of outward then circumstances. So then their mindset now makes that a reality because that's what they're thinking about. Interesting, isn't it? So did one inform the future, or was it used to program the future? Yeah, so this is how powerful certain books could be if you could, you know what I mean, program the collective or subconscious minds of human beings. You understand? And so that's why we're touching about in Job 9:9, Job 38, etc., where there's certain constellations mentioned there, even though in our galaxy, which is one of the smallest of 7 universes on this side of the black hole, there's 100 million stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So why is there interest in the Orion star constellation, Sirius star constellation, do you understand, Arcturus star constellation, understood? Is that because certain groups of extraterrestrials are the ones influencing who came from those star constellations with interest here on this planet? That's where they came from. Do you understand? So, and, you know, the Bible's not the only version, it's not even a factual version, but it's not the only version of what took place in the past, is it? There's loads of different human beings around the planet who've got their own version of, or records of what has taken place way back when, in the past, and how certain things are informed in the now. So those events that are being recorded or brought back to us, saying Wu-Sabat, outformationally, to inform us informationally, yes, and to shape us informationally. So that which has taken place outside the planet Earth is generally considered outformation, yeah, and coming to us in the form of information. And there are many secrets beneath the seas of this planet, isn't it, which is referred to as beneath formation. So all of that is reshaping us, you know, mentally, to inform what we, of course, need to do to take place physically to save ourselves and save the environments that we obviously find ourselves in. You understand? And so we were setting the scene really to let you know, well, who are the different players involved, who are the different actors involved within these events that took place, say around about 12,000, so on forth, so 12,000, years ago, and how that has influenced or shaped certain events today. Okay, so say check out those previous parts, and let's say we should be up to date in the next next couple of weeks or so. So let's do a bit of a recap then. So any questions before I start going on?
No, there was just one question which I managed to answer, but there's no raised hands.
Okay, cool. All right, appreciate that. Right, so we were talking about these various different groups. Yeah, and I think in the last class, if memory serves me correctly, we were going into the Pleiadians, having I think done for a relatively decent job of teaching you everybody else. So it's the Anunnaki, which is an event. The Anuna is really who the actual extraterrestrials are, the humanoid form, and then you've got obviously the reptilian form of them as well, known as the Tanan, in the saying, or Tananu, plural. So, and then let's say we're giving some detail into the Pleiadians. So these two particular groups of extraterrestrials, and then prior to that, obviously we'd explain to you that our ancestors or extraterrestrial ancestors were the Riskians, and obviously links into why so many of our monuments, if not all of them, have links into the Orion and Sirius star constellations, dealing with sort of ancient projects that seeded life here on Earth. You understand? So the original Sands people, how they were produced. We were mermen and merwomen. The waters didn't come here from monkeys. Somebody else's project that was introduced later down the line. But unfortunately, the genes have been scrambled and mixed, so it's difficult to tell who's who, even just by external characteristics or features. Yeah, but what is the inner nature of, individuals? This is why all this information is being sort of conveyed in this day and time, so that those who are supposed to realign themselves with natural nature and realign themselves in terms of the context of us with our etheric ancestors can follow that pathway and do so, even though the challenges clearly of doing that in this day and time are very difficult. Now, here we're just showing you here that this hierarchy of this was a lot of information that this was conveyed in the first 30 years. Do you understand? I think Secrets of Masonry Unmasked was a big book in that time. Millennium Part 1 and 2. There's a lot of Leviathan Part 1, 2, 3, you understand, the various different revisions, which was sort of giving you that, the various different secret societies were being unmasked, weren't they? Do you understand? And sort of revealing who was pulling the strings in terms of the course, particularly in the Western world, but obviously really all over the world, of general producing us bringing towards this sort of one world order, which has been certainly predicted and recorded in many different types of scrolls. But it's in that first 30 years, a lot of the things that the master teacher was talking about now, you sort of blink your eyes and, we're now into the reality of that. So a lot of people probably say, well, I'll never get the chip. I'll never get this. I'll never get that. You understand? But if it's placed in a situation where it's essential to how you need to live, then you're just going to go with the flow. You understand? So many people say they wouldn't, but they got a chip and pin card. You understand? Got a chip and pin card because, and most things, let's be honest, cash is, it's in a lot of instances now, for most people, is a bit of an inconvenience. You've got to pay for services or whatever, which I've got to run out to the bank now and get cash to pay such and such and such and such. When it's now bank transfer, it's tap your card. You understand? Remember back in the day, you had to tap in your PIN. Now, how many times you really got to tap it? Tapping in your PIN now is an inconvenience. To tap in your PIN number when you're paying for things now. Do you see what I'm saying? You just want to tap, 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 tap. How many passwords and things for different apps and all that if you've got to now hold. Yeah, your phone's more than just a phone now. You see what I'm saying? It's pretty much all information of things that you need to hold, and some people use it to transact as well, isn't it? They pay for things with their phone, etc., etc. So now, and to access your phone, you put your finger on it, it reads your fingerprint, and that's a form of security. Do you understand? Now, let's keep it 100. Phones are being stolen, particularly in London, by people on bikes and various other things. Yeah, how soon is it going to be before they say, okay, well, wear this particular device, do you understand, on your body, or stamp this particular code on your body when you do it. Nobody else basically can access your accounts, this, that, and the third, other than you. So you're not far away from it. If you're putting your fingerprint on your phone, or it's reading your retina, whatever the case may be, you're not far away from it, because let's be honest, you see the benefits of it, the convenience, and in certain pathways, like you're going through an airport or something of that nature, if they say, well, that's what you got to use, well, if you want access to your money, that's what you got to use, isn't it? So yeah, back in the day, you could go to the bank, you give them your passbook or whatever, and then you say, listen, I need whatever, 30 quid out of my account. Yeah, you show the relevant ID, and then they give you your money, isn't it? Now, today, before you even get to the bank, now you got to put your PIN in, yeah, to get the money out. You know what I mean? Put your PIN in at the thing just to make an inquiry, or put your card in, put your this in. You ain't got that. It's a difficult. Yeah, they're going to make it inconvenient for you. So we're not that far away from doing all that stuff, which people said they would never have done. Now we're there. You see what I'm saying? Or whatever, credit, this, that, and the third, which now you need for most things. Certainly, and particularly if you're traveling internationally, it's even worse, isn't it? So these things that were being conveyed in those first 30 years, you're now living beyond even the reality of that. Most of the things in the book of Revelations, for example, that were predicted to happen have already taken place. Yeah, they've already taken place. But still, as I say, no Jesus has come back to save everybody. No Muhammad has come back. No Moses has come back to save everybody. If anything, things are getting worse. Yeah, certainly between the three frogs or the three major religions. Now, the point being made is that basically what was sitting behind a lot of these secret societies, overstood, is a pathway or route, to these groups of extraterrestrials. You understand? Now, obviously, of course, if you think about the like the Judaic religion today, for example, the Jewish religion today, really, if you kind of break it down, because they're not the original Jews, you understand, according to the Bible, you understand, they took on Sephardim and Khazar, so it was like Sephardim, for example, taken on these titles, and it's a pitch, basically, isn't it? It's a pitch to this deity, you understand, that they claim to worship, that, listen, we can be better than the people who originally are the original Jews. You understand? If we live the lifestyle, we live the traditions, we're living it better than them. And so if we demonstrate that we can do that, please accept us, do you understand, into your divine grace, so to speak. So the modern Jewish religion today, this is a sales pitch, you understand, to this divine deity to accept them, because those who you put your genes in as the real Judahites, understood, we don't consider them worthy. So it's a sales pitch, isn't it? Yeah. And so in that regard, we're saying that to say, well, if you look across a lot of the different things, it's all a bit of a sales pitch, or the Mukasu or the Caucasian trying to gain favor or acceptance from, these group of beings who have been recorded in religion as gods. Now, in the case of the Pleiadians, obviously not obviously, but obvious to those who have studied with the master teacher, is that those particular group of extraterrestrials are responsible in part for the creation of the Caucasian race, now that they abandoned them. Do you understand? So they're seeking to curry favor, obviously more so with the Draconians or the Anunnaki, the winged class, which is a sort of ruling class in that regard. You understand? And so these various different orders, as it trickles down, and we must make a distinction between Euro Freemasonry, do you understand, and original Egyptian Masonic, you understand, schools, where there's thousands of years of difference. So we obviously had various different orders within ancient Tamaray, ancient Africa, which were aligned basically, as all things are in sort of ancient Egypt, ancient Tamaray, which is dealing with transitions or progressions within nature. Do you understand? So where we get these natural shifts, for example, puberty, around age 12 to 13, where we shift to an adult, for example, at age 40, where we transition, or we are living, but we are between the spiritual and the physical plane at age 80, for example. You have orders that are set in place, as these natural transitions happen, which are programmed within natural nature, to help and guide, and foster one's transformation, so they fulfill their potential. So we had orders that followed these natural change points in life, and that's why we had them. Do you understand? Separate, obviously, sometimes in some instances, to male to female. And as we were coming back, obviously, into the knowledge of who we are, we were walked through these different schools, overstood, so I suppose you could see how the game was being played, or how the spell was cast upon us. And that was a methodology, isn't it, developed by the master teacher to slowly but surely lift, understand, this disease or sickness, mental illness, called the spell, from our minds, understood. And part of it was walking through the Masonic schools, because which was separated, of course, out into male and female. But there must be a clear distinction between Euro Freemasonry and obviously, and not black Euro Freemasonry, but obviously ancient Egyptian, obviously us as master masons, as ancient Egyptians, master builders as the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Sumerians, you understand? All of which is dealing with us, you understand? And obviously sacred geometry and other things, obviously, and there's questions, not getting into all that detail today. But there's a pathway, obviously, there, which, yes, originally separated into male and female. But then when you get back to the ancient Egyptian order, which is all of them come from, the real university where you learn about the universe, on into the multiverses, so on and so forth, the male and the females wear the same uniform, because basically, as we start to transition out of the physical, there's no gender discussion when you're dealing with energy. Understood? So it seems a bit of a contradiction, but there's no gender discussion. And so obviously, as we've said this many times in life, remember, as you hit a certain age, start past 40, what makes you male and what makes you female, obviously, clearly I'm not talking about no transgender nonsense, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about, and I don't say nonsense, I mean to be disrespectful, I mean to say that people just trying to redefine what a woman is, what a man is, or there's whatever, hundreds of genders. We can get a choice to choose. We're talking about what is taking place within the universe of our bodies. Understood? And the fact that your testosterone starts to diminish as a male and your estrogen starts to raise, and as a female your estrogen starts to diminish and your testosterone may start to raise, because you're becoming more balanced, obviously, as a being physically. And that is why in the ancient Egyptian order, in the final order, the males and the females, mimicking nature, wear the same uniform. Do you understand? Because you're transitioning now out of the physical excuse me, where there's no gender discussion. Do you understand? In the context of when we're dealing with us as an etheric being, so to speak. Do you understand? Gender is dealing with physicality, do you understand, and things in the physical realm or world. So you can see with our orders, as we touched upon previously, that they're dealing with changes in nature and dealing with your own transformation, do you understand? Now, obviously somebody's messed with that, so we've been in a state of sickness, so certain things, of course, within this last hour, with the last incarnation of the 19th elder, referred to as Yanun, have had to fast track that transformation, because in the last 6,000 years of the previous cycle, understood, this spell was cast upon us through their mystical science referred to as Wicca, the science of Wicca or Wiccanism, understood, and which has placed obviously our people under the spell to the benefit of, as I say, some of the groups that you're seeing above. So the Illuminati that you've heard, I suppose, mentioned many times in relation to sort of secret societies, one world order, etc., etc. Well, Illuminati, or the illuminated ones, remember the original Illuminati is us. But Illuminati of the black light. So we, us as ancient Africans, ancient Egyptians, we are the original illuminated ones, as the sun with sun heat genes. You understand? Because we are the terrestrial incarnation and the children of the sun, or sons, plural. Do you understand? So it's our or the black light. You understand, that we bring forth, understood, generating that light naturally. Of course, because with that internal sun, which is why you breathe on your hand, you feel heat. You understand? But remember, there's always a 9 version of how we see things, and then it's opposite, understood, which is the 6 ether or 6 way of seeing things. You understand? So they mimic what we do, but in the reverse, isn't it? To take advantage or to be the opposing force of that. Like I say, in Wu-Sabat, or the science of Wu-Sabat, isn't it? 9 represents creation, growth, you understand? as 9 ether, and that means growth into form or system. Do you understand? So it's the all energy that one could conceive of in existence. This is what 9 ether represents. But in its definition, growth into form or system, whereas its opposite, 6 ether, which represents decay within existence, you understand, which would be change in form or system. And of course, that is then change from those originating forces, often obviously weaker because things obviously young, they live in and then become old, understood, or are not kicking out as much energy as when they were young, and then things die, do you understand, and then recycle or resurrect once again, understood. So things are from in a young age are not necessarily kicking out the same energy, or certainly when you're dealing with some of the lower planes, not kicking out as much energy as they were when they were originally, you understand? And as a result of that, certain forces, let's say, come to the fore or cause that decay and destruction. So the two are in tandem with each other, but a certain level of existence that obviously we're rising back up to, or seeking to rise back up to, where the cycles of strength, decline, you understand, don't exist in that way, shape or form. We're above that, means starting to move to higher and more finite forms of energy, which we have to get back up to, you understand. We're trapped, obviously, of course, or have been on these lower planes for far too long. So in them trying to ingratiate or connect with their own ancestors or creators, as they would have it, you see the Illuminati, or the Illuminati as it stands today, the children of fire, which is what they worship, you understand, fire, which is why everything in the society, primarily today, because they control most of the education on the planet today, we talk about being enlightened, you understand, rather than talking about intelligence, intellect, or even outellect and outintelligence coming from the darkness. Understood? So Babylonian mysticism is where the illuminated ones come from, and it's really from those schools of and orders out of ancient Babylon. And today that same system's in place today, isn't it? You go to university, and those who are leave get the degree and then leave, but they're there to sort of help the institution, yes, and help others passing through those particular universities are referred to as alumni. So alumni and Illuminati is the same word. So you're seen to be, obviously, once you've gone through those various different schools within that uni, or you passed your course or whatever, they give you a certain title, then you understand you are illuminated or endowed with light, but in this case obviously fire. So the Albertus Magnus, which I won't get into this loads of detail, but you can look the person up, Albertus Magnus, the Order of the Alberts, around the 13th century. That individual particularly is responsible certainly for shifting Euro Freemasonry, or the infiltration of Euro Freemasonry with, as I say, this focus or emphasis on the worship of fire, do you understand, which is really tying them back in to the group of extraterrestrials you see at the top of the screen, the Anunnaki, do you understand, because of an individual particularly who is a son of Enlil, meaning ruler of the skies, and his son Nanar. His name means master of fire, Nanar, N-A-N .R, say AR, master of fire. And so for this particular individual or character, who is basically the Lucifer and Jesus in the same character within the Bible, do you understand? So Isaiah 14 chapter 12, you understand, and Revelation chapter 22, I think it's verse 16, if memory serves me correctly, the bright morning star. This is talking about this individual referred to as Nanar. So the ingratiation, or trying to link back with, when they've looked through certain records, and sought to really discover who their, I suppose, extraterrestrial mothers and fathers are, you understand, because no one really on the planet can tell where their origin has come from, do you understand? So there may be various theories that have been progressed within the society, but none are factual or accurate. And in that film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, it showed you through Hitler and various different governments, racing around the world or whatever to try and uncover some of these ancient mystical, whether it was monuments, whether it was records, you understand, to try and get an idea of what took place in the past. Well, of course, they've found certain records, haven't they? And now have an understanding of their own story, to some degree, and are not happy with the results in it, because now when we start to look into it, see, well, what they were really created for, which we was touching upon in the previous class, insofar as them being introduced as a weapon into the environment, which is that was what we're getting into with I Was There, which was here. Now, long story short, really is that the Illuminati, above them are these two groups of extraterrestrials. Pleiadians abandoned their children in the sand, or the Adamites into the Canaanites, as they're referred to biblically, because basically they just would not conform to any of their ways, and so they simply abandoned their creation, so to speak, you understand, or their design that they cloned into this environment. So they're interconnected now by trying to ingratiate themselves to these draconians, which their nature is not one, let's say, that you can, for lack of a better word, the devil's a devil, isn't it? So if the devil's not being the devil, even if you're a follower of the devil, if the devil's not, I suppose, inflicting pain, suffering upon you, then they're not really being the devil, are they? Even if you're their follower. So these particular groups of extras are of a completely different nature to one that will be understood, and they'll just use them for whatever purpose clearly they see fit. Now, that purpose, as it trickles down into the original formation of the Bavarian chapter, so the most powerful chapter or successful chapter of the Illuminati, established excuse me, in 1776. Then you get obviously the Rothschilds at one time, maybe even still today, as sort of powerful families there. Then the Council of 13, Grand Druid Council. So a lot of the Euro-Masonic stuff, although it alludes to ancient Egypt, that's a fallacy. A lot of it is really dealing with, as you would have found in Millennium Part 1, it all ties back into the Wicca religion, do you understand? And so even the 3 stages of Freemasonry, you understand, Enter the Apprentice, Fellow Craft, and Master Mason, you understand, start really tie back into the Druidic elevation teachings, you understand, Bard, Brant, you understand, and then the 3rd stage, Druid, you understand. So there, and even some of the practices, the way it's done, mastery of memory and certain things of that nature, all of that really ties back into Druidic teachings, got nothing to do with what we were doing back in ancient Egypt. So then you've got the Council of 33, which is continuously the flag there overstood, which is the 33 most powerful, highest Masons on the planet, Euro-Masons, on the planet, and then the Council of 500 as it touches in there. So the grounding of these various different orders, you understand, and where they lead to ties back into, as I say, these orders are tied in with the extraterrestrials, and even, which is not for this forum directly, but you've got groups that then tie back into the genetics of the Mukasu on the Caucasian, do you understand, i.e. a vampire root versus the lichen root, you understand, which also ties into this with certain, as I say, Euro-Freemasonic orders, York Rites versus the Scottish Rites, and all of those types of things. None of this has got anything to do with, as I say, what we do. So when you see our symbols being misused around the world today, and people say, well, that's an evil symbol, that's evil this, that's it. It's how the symbol's being used, not so much to do with what the symbol is. So OVO, for example, which is by one of the most biggest artists on the planet, isn't it, Drake? But look at the name. Look at the name, Drake, Dracula, Dragon, Draconian. But they use the symbol of the owl. That symbol of the owl is our symbol. You understand? It ties back into a symbol used for ancient Tamaray, ancient Egypt. You understand? Ties back into the female. So our symbols are misused around the world or misrepresented because it forms a point of attraction, isn't it? Your soul, at least having, you understand, your soul might be attracted to because you know there's something in there, understood? But the way it's being used is to basically bind you into their illusion. And so this is the difficulty that we have, and why, as I say, these actual facts, the thousands, you understand, over 1,000 books have been written since the Master Teacher came officially in 1963 and started to bless us with this outformation coming to us in the form of information, so our eyes would be open and so we could fairly see how the game is being played, and you then make your choices after that. If you're making your choice out of ignorance, that's a real problem. If you're making those choices knowing and you still choose, well, then as far as your ancestors are concerned, well, that's on you. Do you understand? But if you don't know, then obviously it's difficult to then apply judgment when a person's in a state of ignorance. Understood? So even though the outcomes are the same, so that set period of time to enable us to transform is why time, in the sense where energy is obviously the issue, isn't it? So keep this individual, keep the teacher away from his people, understood, so we can run the clock down so that they can't transform within the time. Then our ancestors are left with a choice, isn't it? Are these people gonna, if you leave them in place, are they literally gonna at the point of destroying the planet? You understand? Because let's be honest, even we see this war going on at the moment, with them fighting, you understand, over Palestine, you understand, and that particular region, you understand, they're fighting because they believe in both of their religions that some divine entity called Jesus is going to return back there, understood, on a ladder, let's be honest, on a ladder, according to the Muslims, you understand, on a ladder in areas of Damascus. So they're fighting over this particular area because they see it as religiously significant for both sides. But listen, they'll destroy the planet. They'll destroy whatever they're going to destroy, you understand, for whatever they perceive that purpose to be. And all of it is really doing what? Releasing innocent blood, you understand, fearful energy, etc., all into the atmosphere. As we touched upon in the last class, well, who's feeding off of that? Who's gaining off of the fight? So there's some obvious, seemingly you're thinking about the obvious, but who's gaining from the energy that's being released, you understand, from people being murdered, killed, people being killed, fear, etc. All this is feeding in. There's all energy being released into the atmosphere. Who's feeding off of that? Who's getting more powerful as a result of that taking place? And shaping those wars. So you see here that the tie into the draconians or the wing class, the reptilians, you understand, and that obviously how we have it in this society, isn't it, is the blue and red parties there are all, you understand, wings, let's say, on the same bird. So right wing and left wing is all wing. They're two wings of the same bird. So they're all tied in, and the blue just relates to, as I say, what they may consider to be purer bloodline, you understand, versus the red, which is a mixed bloodline, mixed in with Nagara, obviously, as an offset to the dangers, obviously, of the sun, isn't it? For those who have at least amount of melanin. So there's Jesus' story. Their story of a savior is very different to what it means, as I say, when you start talking about golden children, do you understand, and the opening of certain gateways, how we were able to move interdimensionally to avoid different climatic disasters and changes, protect obviously our seed, so that the Nagaru seed obviously is always present as a necessary entity here in existence, because we're holding all of this particular plane together. So we're necessary and needed here as things stand and may be. So that's a bit of a background to some of those forces in play. And just to touch upon that, well, people think it's also obviously us, with some of these fantastical theories. Well, you've got this Georgia Guidestones, that the origin of how it was erected is a very seemingly mysterious. This particular diagram shows you it's holding many different, or the stones, or the actual message being conveyed is being shown in many different languages. Yes, it's not super clear who formulated and funded it. It's not an ancient erection, but more of a modern one. And actually, I think it was attacked a couple of years ago by what may consider to be a terrorist act. What's interesting here is this top bit, of these various different points being made. We touched upon this as a characteristic, or the thinking of these draconians is around the amount of people on the planet. So here you see, maintain humanity under 500,000 in perpetual balance to nature. So some of these particular groups, which we maybe consider adverse to us, believe that the population of the planet should only be 500,000. Do you understand? So it should only be 500,000 on the planet. That everybody else is basically what they would describe as useful eaters. Do you understand? So in that regard, so you got producers, and they consider, obviously in business, isn't it, when you think about how we're referred to as consumers. So obviously consuming all types of, whether it's food primarily, or various different things that are produced, and so the consumers are considered to be useless eaters, and there is a surplus to be utilized and used for whatever purpose, and the producers are the ones, obviously, which are useful. So in this regard, you can see here that these individuals are producing, or stuff for these particular extraterrestrials to consume or make use of, like resources. You understand? And in that mindset, they are sort of pulling the strings to sort of determine what they perceive is best. You understand? For the planet, or humanity, as maybe they see it, in position or so. But that puts, as I say, a number of us in a position basically where really and truly our only protection is the fact of who we are and who we're connecting to in terms of our genes. You understand? And I suppose how powerful those Riskians are in relation to everybody else. Do you understand? But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily mean, because somebody in ignorance is not going to know this level of detail of who's to be touched or who shouldn't be touched, primarily unless you're in the know. Same way like the being named Inky of the Sumerian doctrine, went into Africa and mixed in with the Sands people, mixing with the Sands people, not knowing obviously that in itself was a Riskian project, until he met up with Alelu, and his counterpart in South America, and who had more knowledge, obviously, of the ancient records, etc., and why he settled in South America and not in Africa, because he knew he didn't really want to mess with the project which was over there, which was owned by those Riskians, the Natharu themselves. So, as I say, you see the interconnection there, the Georgia Guidestones, and the link, even in the language. You see that us here in the UK, as my teacher breaking down, that this word British, so ish, ish, you see in Hebrew is fire, but phonetically the sound, ish is also male, or ishasha female, isha female, excuse me, and the word for fire, understood, is also ish, understand? And so phonetically the sound of male and female, and the word for fire is the same sound. So when you really look at the word British, you see that word there, or the ish, it means fire, and Brit, yeah, is really saying barith, or covenant. Yeah, so really the hidden meaning behind it is the covenant of the children of fire, in the same, which ties you back into the Illuminati, in the same, and obviously the head lizard in charge, you understand, which is Elizabeth or Elizabeth. Do you understand? So all of it ties in, you understand? The woman, obviously, you see in the New York as opposed to the old York, yeah, holding up. What's she holding up, isn't it? She's got a torch in her hand, and so they worship obviously the woman or the female, as the head lizard in charge, and their weapon at that particular time, isn't it, is fire. Yeah, that consuming fire. Fire itself is not good or bad. You understand? It's obviously a sensual element here, you understand, for physical life here on the planet, but it's how it's used, isn't it? And how they use it is to burn down ancient libraries, burn down ancient records, so they can introduce a modern way of doing things. Yeah, the modernized version, or put us in a certain word. Modern ties into word mode, so put you in a certain frequency. So no longer are we seeing things holistically or in a 360 fashion, but we want to focus you on one or a few degrees, yeah, so you don't see the bigger picture. Now, barif, as we've touched upon previously, ties into the word bara, as you see on the slide there, and it's that root word there, or bara. It means to eat, you understand? Remember, consume, consumers, tying into the fact that the Bible and the Torah, etc., is nothing but an extraterrestrial menu book. Understood? And this is the sort of problem or the secret, obviously, that's been uncovered today. And I was there, which is here, is talking about, certain ancient wars that took place to try and seek really to eliminate this practice, as I say, unnatural practice within the environment, which was basically causing much mayhem, chaos, destruction, and really a major detriment to the environment. Any questions?
Yes, we have one question, and this is from Judith. So says, so can you tell us if the books are being brought to the now from the past? When you reveal this outformation, which becomes information from out there. Not quite. I don't know if that makes quite understand where. Let me read that again. So, can you tell us if the books are being brought to the now from the past?
Okay, so really appreciate the question. So, and if the answer's not correct, then obviously please provide some feedback. But what we're talking about is that basically what we're seeing here is that the human beings are on a pathway to self-destruction. Do you understand? So really what's happening is our ancestors are coming from a version of the future, understood? Yeah, and coming back into our now to introduce, this sort of healing information, which basically, would change the predicted destiny of the behaviors which are taking place at the moment. So by introducing that into the now, you can make an alternative future from the one that's predestined to happen if we continue particularly down this path. Now, the reason why the past is important is because for us, what we're doing in Wu-Sabat is that they're taking us back to a point in the past where we were, for lack of a better word, living our best life. You understand? We were in tune both physically and spiritually, and our way of life, way of living was synced in with the natural environment, and we were connecting with our ancestors. So by bringing us back to the knowledge of what we were can help also influence the now and aid our transformation of what we need to become to transform, as I say, and be once again be spiritually, powerful once again to fight against the very forces that want to see that destruction take place. So there's two forces at play. One is dealing with self-preservation and one is dealing with self-destruction. And so those who are advocates of self-preservation must become powerful enough, understood, to overcome the very forces and participate in the fight of those who want to see self-destruction. So not physically they must become powerful, but also work with nature, which is aiding that transformation, which we see with all the various different climatic changes and calamities taking place around the world. So obviously there are forces that are aware of these particular destinies, and obviously clearly are able to take influence in action by, as I say, we touched upon earlier, introducing scriptures, because that's obviously shaping the minds a lot of the different people. And so remember, in the age we're in now, in the age of Paa Taraq, which they refer to as the age of Aquarius, we've moved from Pisces, as they record it, which is dealing with obviously similar to fishes, but it's dealing with the physical rituals. So in their Bible, for example, the character named John the Baptist, he baptized this character by the name of Jesus with water. You understand? So that was representing one era, but then the era shifted with that character. I remember then in on the day of Pentecost, you understand, it's Acts, in the book of Acts, they were then baptized with fire. You understand? Or what appeared to be like fire. So one was physical, represent the physical ritual. The one with the fire represented, which was inspiration, it represented the era of ether. So there was a shift, in the ages, understood. So the battle now is one of mind, capturing the minds of the people, so to speak. Men say it's an information war, or you understand, we're fighting who's controlling the minds of the individuals or the people, you understand, or who is trying to institute control, and those trying to free themselves from that control to be who they are supposed to be. Do you understand? In terms of their own transformation journey. So this is what is taking place at the moment, and to some degree, all this was known and predicted to happen because it's happened many times before. It's not a case of everything's brand new. Things happen in cycles, isn't it? So we're going through that sort of cyclical approach, but obviously in either a different way, because we would consider it to be modern times. The only other thing to say on that as well is that our ancestors, i.e. the Riskians, are not perceiving past and future in the same way that we're looking at past and future. So we would probably say where we are at now and what is to come, we would perceive that as the present, and we perceive that, or what's to come, as the future. Do you understand? And we would probably consider that as the what one would describe as the latest point. Understood? Or the youngest point of where we're at. Do you understand? Because things haven't happened yet. Whereas our ancestors are looking at the very origin or source of things. So as well, that's the present. So if we take it, or give an example for human life, for example, when the sperm hit the ovum, which created a big bang, or a big bang to microscopic entities, they're looking at that point as the present. They're not looking at where the person is at where they are now, the resultant growth, as the present. They're looking at the origin of where the thing came into real existence. They would consider that to be the present. Understood? And where we're at, as opposed to be the past. So, as I say, by coming back into the now, you're seeking me to change the destiny of this fake destiny. And when I say fake destiny, meaning there's been interference, understood, in terms of in ourselves, in our own minds, to fool ourselves into thinking that this illusion is the reality. Now, the only reality is that if we continue down the same path in his mind and mindset, then it's going to lead to destruction versus transforming into the mindset that we should have been in, i.e. what we were created to be, and seek to preserve and protect the environment that we're in, and us to once again live in our optimum state. So hopefully that's answered your question. If not, please add further clarification. Now, any other questions? No, say the science is no. Excuse me. Right, okay, so so looking at this a little bit of this recap. So
Sorry, Nabab, I had my computer on mute. Yes, there's a response to that answer that you gave. She said that she loves the answer and remembers the master teacher teaching on this before. There's a second question. Right. This one says, what is the all about? What is the all about? It doesn't really fit in with this particular class. That's something we can answer.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think your observation is correct there. Basically, to say, when we say all, it's saying we can't add to it, you can't take away from it. Effectively, what it's explaining to you is that it's dealing with existence. Yeah, so all, or pa'ut, as it's described, is all expanding. So what it's translated into English, it can't really be defined, but it's dealing with existence. Yeah, so all, the makeup of all things. Yeah, so things as in the smallest sort of particles within existence, understood, make up the whole. Yeah, and the whole cannot be added to or taken away from, because where would you get it from? Yeah, so it's introducing what has maybe been considered in terms of the religious degrees, and its introduction of God, Most High, or what it considers to be divinity, as responsible for all creation, being all powerful, all knowing, etc. Well, when you read the actual scriptures themselves, it doesn't fit this definition. So like in Genesis chapter 3, when the Lord was walking in the cool of the day, well, if you're omnipresent, for example, then there will be no motion. You can't walk to and from and be omnipresent, because where you left, you're supposed to be occupying where you're going to. So the problem is, it within the explanations of divinity, it doesn't fit the attributes that they have considered to be the divine. So when we step back into our understanding, our sacred records, particularly from one who is referred to as Tahuti, yeah, and his observations of of existence and nature, classified into 9 different doctrines. Well, he introduces to us, at least, or those records introduce to us, about its observation of Pa'ut, understand? And so we have Pa'ut as in all, and then you have the all, understood? And so he's introducing that, as I say, this idea to us, and I use the word idea loosely, of existence, you understand? And then the mindset, or the mind that sits behind or is responsible for why we're and how we're all here, do you understand? But you get to a point, as I say, where you have all, or omniversal thinking, or omniversal environment, which is the whole. Then out of that omniverse birthed multiverses, understood, and then you go 9 points down until you get to what we classify as a universe. Do you understand? And so really, when you're dealing with all, or pa'ut, you're dealing with stillness. Yeah, and so, or the concept of stillness, at least, and motion or energy, yeah, was birthed out of that stillness. Yeah, so it's really a state, or the source of, I think Mars described it in one old school tape, as a source of all existence. Yeah, Pa'ut. Yeah, it's the ultimate source, I think he did say, the ultimate source of all existence. Yeah, and that's what we're basically talking about when we're dealing with Pa'ut. We are the all within all. Yeah, so we have those characteristics as the children, you understand, of Pa'ut, and so those characteristics, the formulation of existence, so on and so forth, are found in the Negaru female and Negaru male. Or Negroid female and Negroid male. We have those characteristics, obviously, to represent Pa'ut within us as the all within all. Understood? And so a book to help you seek out a book called Who is God, Female and Male. Yes, because it will help you maybe to understand, this.
Can I interject here briefly? The questioner has rephrased the question.
Okay.
And thank you for your explanation. But he's asking, what is the AI all about? Well, the way it was written, it's
okay.
Yes.
Artificial intelligence, you mean?
Yes, but I assume that's what he means, AI, yes.
But he say, what is it all about?
What's it all about?
What is it?
It's not a question, I think that's...
No, that's particularly not pertinent to what we're talking about at the moment. Listen, you've had shifts in particularly technology, to answer quickly, I suppose, from extraterrestrial intervention, particularly from the incident in Roswell in the 40s, and various groups or countries, and politicians around the world have been trading with extraterrestrials for resources in exchange for technology, basically. And so we've seen advancements around the world, particularly since the 40s, in the last sort of, what we're talking about here, 80 or so years, where we've seen significant advancements in technology. You understand? Human beings don't just walk and pop up once then and say, listen, I want to create an iPhone, or I want to create, various different technologies that we see today. Usually they say necessity is the mother of invention. So something's happened, we need to solve a problem, and then inventions or advancements happen as a result. Many, for example, have happened out of conflict, in a sense. So wars that are taking place, and particularly when we touch upon those groups of extraterrestrials known as the Luciferians or the Pleiadians, one of their kind of principles or mantras was to advance human beings or advance mankind. You understand? Their creation or their making of a clone being into this environment was to advance them through conflict. Do you understand? So that they would develop more, they would get stronger. So technologically they would develop, they would solve certain things out by way of wars that were taking place. You understand? That's one of their principles. So AI is just another real shift or step, really, in a way of finding, as I say, a mechanism or way to preserve themselves where nature obviously is killing them. Do you understand? So if they can find a mechanism or way to transfer their consciousness, you understand, out of the body that they're in, you understand, and put it in different various guises or forms, then obviously AI would assist or help in that regard. Do you understand? I suppose another aspect to it as well is that as you're sort of reading about, they're doing or following the mindset of what their ancient ancestors or their extraterrestrial ancestors did, isn't it? They created beings that they can place in servitude. Yeah, so what the ultimate aim of AI or robots or different things of that nature is to do the work that human beings don't have to do, innit? Or more work, that human beings don't have to do. And of course, somebody works a 9 to 5, you have to give them breaks, you have to give them rights, you understand? You have to pay them in a certain instance in different ways that nature. Well, obviously and then they have to rest, isn't it? They have to eat, they have to take breaks, they have to go home to their families, so on and so forth. Well, if you can find a more efficient way of doing that, then what kind of world can you create in your image and after your likeness that is driven simply by programming some instructions into a being, as I say, that excuse me, is intelligent enough to to think for themselves, do the work, etc. But as I say, it doesn't have the weaknesses and the inaccuracies of human beings. So this is what we're seeing with the advancement of this sort of taking place right now. But you can see, who did they learn it from? They got that mindset, an idea from their own overlords and ancestors, and that's what they're reading about on these ancient records. The only difference is that, you know, when you're dealing with beings like the Natharu, for example, and of that nature, remember, and even the Anunnaki to some degree, their ability to create or their technology basically means that they're programming at the genetic level, understood? So whereas if you look at the Tesla robot, for example, it's like the robot there looks like a robot, isn't it? It's made from metal, you know, saying it's got circuits in and various other bits, you know, chips and so on and so forth. Well, that reflects their level of technology. Do you understand? Whereas when you're dealing with groups like the Anuna, you understand, and beyond that to our own, when they're replicating that, what you're seeing is that same technological approach, but you're seeing the human body. Human body is, for example, a vessel or vehicle that's been designed, and it can be programmed, obviously, at the genetic level. So you're seeing two different types of technology there. You understand? Now, artificial intelligence, for example, what you would call, listen to what it says, artificial intelligence. You understand? Or so the planet itself, for example, runs the planet, deciding what species should live, die, do you understand, and maintain the environment. They call it ecosystem, so to speak, is run via what we would describe as a computer program. We refer to as cybernetics. You understand? But does it have a shape? Does it look like, for example, the computers that you see today? No, because the beings that are responsible for it are, you know what I mean, more technologically advanced. Understood? So that's what you're effectively seeing taking place right now, and informed by, as I say, technology that they've received from extraterrestrials. So if there's any other questions on that, or does that answer the question?
Yeah, that answers the question. There are no more questions.
And just to that point, because a lot of the movies that they show, isn't it, with this AI, is that the AI is going to take over the world. Yeah, and see, well, you programmed me to do this particular function, and then the AI turns around and develops consciousness and see, well, human beings, you're the problem. So, and then, you know, that's what they show you in these movies, isn't it? And then the AI takes over and says, well, I think we need to destroy human beings because they're, I mean, by programming, it sees that you're the real problem, because it sees that they're hypocrites and maybe they don't follow the things that they're instructed to do, or in some instances, the people who are serving, or the beings that are serving, get sick of serving, so they want to overthrow their masters and all this type of thing. So what's interesting about that is, well, their description of heaven, well, what do you think that's going to be like then? Because you got these human beings, the concept of heaven isn't that human beings not going to have to work a 9 to 5 anymore. You see what I'm saying? That they're not going to be hungry, they don't have to eat or whatever. Yeah, so in this particular environment, and the angels are going to be there serving, you know, or taking care of your every needs. Well, what happens when the angels get sick of serving human beings? You understand? And ungrateful, you know, get sick of them. Are they going to overthrow human beings? You understand? Or human beings going to be up in heaven, not happy with their lot, and want more? So whilst you may be there, listen, okay, yeah, 9 to 5 is cool. I don't have to do that no more. I don't have to work. I'm living forever. All that's cool. But you're going to have people up there who might not be satisfied, with their lot, and decide, listen, we want more, innit? We want what the angels have got. Or we want to be able to travel. We don't want to be stuck in this place for eternity. We want to be able to go outside this place and travel around the place. We see what the angels are doing. They get to go here, there, everywhere. We're stuck. So those human beings now, when they get upset, are going to overthrow the hierarchy that's there. So these are the types of things that, as I say, you see in their records or stories, but apparently all this thing that we're fighting for to go to this place called heaven, where it's all good, but Revelation chapter 12 verse 7 lets you know that there was a war in heaven. So yeah, it's not obviously all problems being solved if within their own ranks fighting is taking place. And what's going to be different if, say, or a different mindset if you got those same things happening, which human beings over time have become disgruntled about. And I suppose that's what you got to watch, isn't it? The same things that they said, well, in their Bible story in Genesis, yeah, they had to, man became like God, yeah, or the Lord God, when he done negativity. So when he disobeyed, it says in Genesis chapter 3 verse 22, now the man has become like one of us to know good from evil. Well, he became like God, yeah, he became like these divine entities when he disobeyed. Yeah, not when he complied. He became like them when he turned around and said, listen, God told us to do one thing, let's try our own thing. Let's disobey. So the rebelliousness, yes, made them like God. So there obviously must have been positive and negative beings within the group. Yeah, and so they had to put what? They said, well, man, if a man gets the opportunity to access to this tree, he could live forever and he could potentially overthrow. So they obviously maimed them, didn't they? Yeah, and so within 4 generations, they removed something, yeah, from the rib of the woman, and then in 4 generations down, by the time they got to a person named Enos, yeah, now then man began to pray. Yeah, so Enos meant mortal, and so then man began to pray according to that story. So the point is that even these gods or God, yeah, took preventative action to stop human beings from overthrowing them at one point into the future, yeah, because they obviously had the capability to do so, and so they put brakes in or a fail-safe mechanism where they couldn't exactly be like the gods. They maimed them. Do you understand? And so human beings' life, according to Genesis chapter 6, isn't it? My days not always striving, man, for his days shall be 120. So they put brakes in so that one could only live for 120 years, and then secondly, they would not fulfill their full capabilities. Yeah, as you see in when prayer was introduced. Do you understand? Whereas previously, according to the story, yeah, man had a direct connection. Yeah, so they spoke directly into the heads of human beings. Now prayer was introduced when this mortal now was, as I say, being born in Genesis chapter 4. So this is the point being made is that, yeah, fail-safe was put in to stop beings from overthrowing. So when you look at this AI, it'll be the same sort of challenges, won't it? I mean, they put some fail-safe in place because at a certain point, yeah, if they do generate that some sort of artificial awareness, the danger is that you've placed so much reliance on this tech that it could overthrow, isn't it? So listen, so human beings are, are the problem. Yeah? Manifestation is man infesting the planet, you understand? And so you could create something that ends up killing you, which is their whole thing, isn't it? That's their whole mindset. Where, as I say, within their stories, whether it's Frankenstein, whether it's this fascination with, which is a dog mentality, not God mentality, it's a dog mentality, the canine mentality, yeah, the top dog mentality, which is basically in order to rise to the top, I have to kill those who came before me, isn't it? So you see in, I don't know, whatever it is, Star Wars and different programs that they've got, isn't it? Where they do it, the person ends up trying to kill their parents in order to take the top position or to elevate or whatever. So that's a canine mindset that you're seeing to the prevalence there. Okay, Right, so let's move on then. So
There was another follow-up question to that one. I don't know if you want to
go ahead, go
take
ahead.
that. Um, it's from the same person, Pata. Um, who or what beings, let me start again. Who or what beings who are behind this project? Who or what beings are behind this project?
Well, that's a bit of a bigger question. So it's not one particular set or group, one would say. So as we say, since the 40s, you've had many groups of extraterrestrials involved. AI or artificial intelligence is just a culmination of, as I say, where they're at the moment in terms of the development of this. Obviously, you've got Arcturians, you've got, as we touched upon earlier, you've got the Pleiadians, and importantly, I suppose, you've got beings beneath the center who live in the center of the planet, where even today you see IBM, for example, or the introduction of IBM, and on into Apple and these other types of technologies. They're based on ancient computers that were stored beneath or within the center of the planet, where obviously there's a subterranean world, which is there where many different species live there. You can read about it in the Holy Tablets, chapter 17. There's a book called Shambhala and Argata. So you understand? So a lot of these technologies are not necessarily always coming also from, they are coming from above in terms of the overall context, but you've got beings below the ground, you understand, where those same technologies are being, say, introduced slowly but surely into the site we have today. And remember, they're also reading about, this is one of the things you need to be cognizant of, they're reading about what their ancient ancestors do. We touched upon this earlier in the class, where they're reading about these records. So it's influencing the technological development of what's happening, because they're seeing, okay, well, this was existed in the past, and how certain things obviously are being taken forward, or how can we replicate that now? They don't obviously have all of the information necessary, but with other technological interventions, this is how they're able to progress and move. And the other thing as well is that their spiritual practices, remember, as we've seen with Adolf Hitler and his relationship, for example, with the Theosophical Society and Madame Blavatsky, in a sense where two witches, Maria Ortish and Seagram, in a sense, were assigned to him, and they picked their point person on Earth. In a sense, he's linked to the Pleiadians, for example, and they picked their point person on Earth, which is why, for example, even though he himself was of the Jewish religion, you understand, and dark hair, dark eyes, which will put him on the sort of Negroid spectrum in that context, yeah, he was trying to produce a super race that was blonde hair, blue eyed, you understand? And this is because he encountered obviously extraterrestrials, i.e. the Pleiadians. That's what they look like. So he presumed them to be in the image and after the likeness of God, and so he wanted to create a being in the earth that was in the image and after the likeness of God. And so that's what his project was, you understand? And obviously if he had perfected that, then they would have at least been able to then spiritually incarnate into a vessel or vehicle that he had created for them. Do you understand? So so the speeding up of human beings sometimes works twofold. It works on the positive side, to advance us or to a point where, as I say, we are able to positively influence and change the environment for the better. But as well, others on the negative side of it would utilize that and influence human beings in a way to accelerate their destruction. Do you understand? And if they therefore then destroy themselves, then the environment then is up for grabs for others to take over this planet. Do you understand? So yeah. So it's a number of groups. I refer you to Holy Tablets chapter 17 and Shambhala Argata to see those influencing factors in that regard. And as I say, examples of the positive side, then Lotus of Life, you can see that The Riskians, for example, progressed or enabled them, the Caucasian Mukasu, because they were the sort of those in charge at the moment, to progress the design, for example, of the home computer, as I say, which was based upon ancient designs of computer, which then enabled women to have, and the internet, for example, women to have access to technology where they were trapped in the home to aid their progression. Do you understand? And quietly, in a way, I suppose, give them the ability to make money, gain power, to try and transform or seek to transform that action or plan within nature, which is to restore the woman back to power. Yeah, so there are different ways how we've ended up on those pathways, not just a single set of actions why we have the progression of AI today. Any other questions?
No, that's all the questions right now.
Okay, so yeah, and check out Lotus of Life for more information on that. Yep. Okay. Nothing else, then I'll move on. So one of the points we was making about these this what I've gone into about the cycles, which touching upon the last time, was because in terms of these groups, we can see, for example, in Holy Tablets chapter 1, tablet 2, referred to as the cycles, yeah, it introduces two groups, yeah, of extraterrestrials, and it's saying here, yeah, saying that basically, saying Luciferian order, yeah. So here we were talking about this. Let's go from 24. It says, after that, Natas began to do disagreeable acts and disobey El Elo, the head Yahweh, the most high deity of all the deities, the source. He condemned them, Natas, also called Lucifer, an extraterrestrial being on Terra, or what you refer to as extraterrestrial. 25. The Luciferian order came out of a group of extraterrestrial beings called the Yahwehs, sometimes called Jehovahs. The Luciferians would interfere with beings on this planet called Earth and pass themselves off as gods. Yeah, so here you see in this sort of ancient look about the trickery and that used to take place, wearing of masks, etc., to utilize human beings for their own purposes. Now, so we've got one group called the Luciferians, and we've got another group, yeah, called the Satanists. Now, so here, here it's saying Leviathan, serpent people, one of the reptilian seeds or Luciferians had been trying to gain control over this planet for many thousands of Earth years. They are called the sex and spirit force, also called Pone, you understand, which ties into pornography, yeah. As you see a predominant activity, let's say, and with the technological advances that we see today, isn't it, with social media, the internet, so on and so forth, this has become even more prevalent, overstood, yeah, as it being introduced or born out of particularly the USA, and saying it's probably the biggest producers, let's be honest, of that type of activity within the world today. Understand? And again, all about controlling energies. So let's read on. So it's saying here, they're able to seduce and deceive all those with desires on earth, turning lust into luster, thereby 28, thereby attracting and controlling all with it, as Nakabal, yeah, the real name for Eve, yeah, in the Bible story, was seduced by the Leviathan powers of lust. It is the death of divinity and the birth of mortality. Yeah, so this is what's showing you is that, again, why is not the issue of what's taking place, but the why is it taking place. Yeah, so this ability, or one, let's say, progressing with control of one's sexual powers, because it's a power, isn't it? The sex force is a power. So, and as we know, yeah, women are weakened through the sexual process, are weakened by way of their DNA being weakened, and males are weakened physically. So not to say that sex is a bad thing and all of that sort of stuff, but it's saying it's overuse and how it's used, particularly through pornography, and then certain things that people have then been taught through that, because sex as an act, for example, as we talked about earlier, yes, very powerful, but there are different routes, isn't it, down and how sex is delivered, because you've got the science of sex and then you've got the art of sex. Understood? So it, at the end of the day, you're going to lose regardless, but the science for us is to get the maximum amount of pleasure with the least adverse results, isn't it? Do you understand? Obviously, if they can control you in a way where they're causing, as it's saying here, lust into luster, so you're over, the lust is not being controlled in a manner or a way, you understand? People living for that feeling or the expression of that, then, and there's no control, then obviously what does that turn into, isn't it? It's part of those forces that will lead to not only decay, destruction, but can also lead to killing, isn't it? If there's no control, for example, person goes and sleeps with somebody's wife under the mine doctrine. So if somebody's with a partner, they consider that partner to be mine, isn't it? Yeah, that's my wife, that's my husband, that's my this. Yeah, and if you mess with it or take it, how many people are sitting in prisons now, you understand, are incarcerated over crimes of passion, as it would be described as, you understand? So when you're seeing all of that in play, understood, somebody's benefiting from the energy that arises, yes, the energy production, the negative energy production that arises from those acts. Yeah, this is you have to sort of keep in mind. Yeah, so what is it saying now? Saying that the seduced by the Leviathan powers of lust is the death of divinity and the birth of mortality. Yeah, 29. This is why the Intergalactic Confederation quarantined the planet. If enough entities were looking for freedom from the control of the Luciferians, the Intergalactic Confederation will remove these forces from the planet. 30. Yet humans love to lust and lust to love, expressing energy in motion, overexerting their emotions and bringing about their spiritual death. You see it's underlined here. Consider its importance. 31. There's a group called the Satanists who are not the same as the Luciferians. Their other names are the Divines or Nachashites or Hanas. 32. These Satanists are more sadistic than the Luciferians, whose leader was Lucifer, also called Natas, which is simply Satan spelt backwards. They are also called the Shayatinihim. Yeah, Shayatinihim. 33. They've supplanted themselves in every facet of life that you can think of, and now have you naming yourselves after them. You understand? I suppose in England, maybe Santan Dave is probably a famous rapper in that regard. In the sense now it's considered normal. 34. And the names of the 204 angels as well. You see that seeping into the society today. Now, this is important. This is the most important bit. As the Satanists seek mind control and dominance, while the Luciferians seek to control the energies of others. They are best described as vampires who draw on the energy of others, also called Dracula, Dracos, Dragos, serpent dragons, yeah, called Leviathan. So this is showing you again, when we talk about energy control or controlling of resources, understood, yeah, there's two different parts at play there. And remember, Yah means agreeable, Way meant disagreeable. So the original sort of 24, or their version of the 24 elders was 12 agreeable entities and 12 disagreeable entities. You understand? Referred to as, well, Lord, they call them Lord God in the biblical context, but Yahwehans. So you're seeing two groups, obviously of different agendas, yeah, in the environment, and as I say, subtly influencing how certain things are good to go. Now, as I say, before, I think you had a absolute complete understanding of what lust was, what, I don't know, women of the night were, so to speak. You understand what, you know, women who were considered to be loose, or, you know, that type of thing. You understand? Maybe there was a lot stronger morals around how that was understood. Now today, you know, a woman could have 100, slept with 100 man, or whatever the case may be, and if you point that out, yeah, there's negativity against that. Do you understand? So that actually there's this sort of idea being pumped around that you can live how you want, live as you want to do, so on and so forth, without any judgment. Where, you know, unfortunately, you know, nature has certain rules in place where you can't just do as you want, because there's consequences to certain actions, which they want to eliminate any kind of idea of any judgment, when in actuality, yeah, what oversexed doing, you understand, it's just what doing what, causing genetic confusion, spreading of sexual diseases, etc., which may be the moral aspect of it, as it was once maybe originally understood, was designed to protect against that. Now those moralities are being removed, at least programmed to be removed, as we can see here, for various different adverse consequences. If there was no consequences to these actions, then it wouldn't be a problem, but there are. So, and as you can see here, ultimately, what is it creating? It's creating more mortal beings than it's designed to, or help us to develop our more divine talents, you understand, and capabilities, etc., to overthrow the various different adverse forces. Now, of course, the issue is that of course, sex is important. There's elements to it that, particularly with orgasms, etc., for women that have been suppressed clearly through the religious degrees, that help to open up certain centers of the brain, open up certain aspects of our mind, connects us basically outformationally, if things are done right. But again, it's a self-preservation pathway to that, and there's a self-destruction pathway to that. And a lot of the time when you hear people talking about the art of sex, it's based on Caucasian thinking around sex, which oftentimes, depending on the type of practices, have nothing to do with, again, one's esoteric or spiritual development. More so, it's playing with or tampering with fate or death. Do you understand? Their development around that is what the closer to death, maybe the more excitement. Now, like for example, strangulation, different types of things maybe that are introduced are more prevalent today than maybe they were 20, 30 years ago, whatever. And is that the right way to do things? Do you understand? Or is that more to do with, well, the innate people who were starting to think about, well, let's add this in, let's add that in, let's bring this toy in, let's bring that in, let's bring this external influencing factor in, is because they couldn't get it up naturally. So they couldn't get it up naturally because of lack of salt in their body, can't get a proper, you understand? And therefore can't then satisfy. So they have to keep adding in other external factors. Now, the mentality and things of where that's been propagated today, younger people think, well, that's the way things should be done. That's the way sex should be carried out. That is the way of making love, whatever the case may be. And then, somebody then believes, well, that I enjoy that or don't enjoy that. When it's so far away from the self-preservation techniques and styles and things that were taught in our orders, this approach of, as I say, a pathway to spiritual death through, you understand, enhanced ways in which they're teaching, individuals how to have sex, which you're not really taught properly, let's be honest. But now through Porne, that is how it's progressing, as I say, a certain type of action, why it's allowed in societies today and why it's considered to be legal. You understand? Because the yacht and the way are, again, as we see it, they're the two wings of the same bird, isn't it? You understand? Insofar as they both serve to benefit from spiritual weakness or spiritual death of human beings, because, of course, those powers innately that we could develop would help us to overthrow the forces, you understand, that are clearly controlling the planet, or we wouldn't be feeding those forces by way of our actions. Do you understand? So feeding the force, or to stop feeding the force, is one, obviously to not do the actions which are clearly contributing to what feeds them. Do you understand? And secondly is operate, or maybe more importantly, is operating on a level, or higher levels of energy where those forces basically don't have the apparatus to exist on. So at 7, 8 and 9 ether, you're operating at more finite forms of energy that don't feed 6 ether. Understood? And how we learn by way of environment and practice to be back at that level again, where we're untouchable, or at least we're not feeding, as I say, we're feeding our own ancestral forces. We're not feeding lower forces that are primed, as I say, to try and or seek to take us out. You understand? So this is where there has to be a clear distinction, and where the game, as I say, of religion has been really to appear as good, understood, but the result of following that particular pathway is feeding the forces that actually are adverse. Yeah, so God and the devil are one and the same being. This is the big trick, isn't it? God and devil one and the same being. Because who taught you about the devil? Well, you learn about the devil by learning about God, because that's the complete opposite. It is the religions of the monotheistic religions of three frogs, Judaism, Christianity and Islam. They are the ones who promote Lucifer. They promote the devil's doctrine. They promote the devil's name. They're the ones who taught you about the existence of the devil, as they have it, or devils, plural. You understand? And even, as I say, if we think about directly with ourselves, those so-called good books have been used to enslave our people, or give them moral justification for enslaving our people. You understand? As ordained or authorized by their gods. Yeah, so the Caucasians get a lot of, as I say, the blame, let's say, for slavery, but the Arabs, understood, are some of the biggest slave traders on the planet, and still even doing those acts even today. Understood? So this is what you're seeing here, or the game that's being played, and why Baba obviously had to explain, or the master teacher explained, to say, we'll leave their stuff alone, because they give you the illusionary opposites. Understood? And as I say, the right and the left wing are on the same bird. You understand? You want to dash that bird away, or keep it in a cage, you understand? Keep it at arm's length, or nowhere near. We have a different bird. Yeah, the original owl was our symbol. You understand? Those who could see, the true, you know what I mean? Because the owl is nocturnal, isn't it? Our power is in the darkness, in the blackness. Yeah? Who's closer to the colour of existence than we are? That's where all the power comes from, isn't it? Yeah, excuse me, that birth suns, tremendous energy producers, you understand? Creators of universes, solar systems, so on and so forth. Tremendous in power, but that power comes from the 90% of existence that we don't see. So why not align with that which is all powerful? Yeah, the nothingness, you understand? And reconnect and let that come through us once again. Understood? But remember, the reason why they sort of can't come through, particularly with the females, is because women at one time used to take male energy, which was negative, you understand, and our interaction with the woman would turn that energy, understand, into positive. So she acts as an energy transformer, changing the frequency of the energy to a more positive frequency. Do you understand? Whereas women don't do that today. Remember that both of the parties, male and female, isn't it? Woman is what, the attracting force, and the male is the repelling force, and how the sex force in and of itself was utilized, as we've said many times before in these classes. But remember, it was utilized so women would control that energy, isn't it? Not in a Luciferian kind of way, but in a positive way, because the man wanted the ability, isn't it, to express himself in the woman's garden, isn't it? Her lotus of life. Well, okay, cool. Do the garden, isn't it? You understand? Fix that. Yeah, fix the wall, isn't it? Build us a house. Do you understand? You understand what I'm saying? So they're able to direct that energy, you know what I mean, or control the sex force, or that lust in a positive way. Then you can enter the lotus of life. You can have a piece of the lotus of life. Earn it. But if a man can just get it, what happens when a man overexpresses himself sexually? Becomes lazy and weak. Yeah, so they know about. So there's there's a 9 way of how these things work, and there's a 6 and a ghostational way of how these forces work, based upon the 9 way. You understand? So there's no new thinking on their part. Yeah, there's no new thinking. It's all copy. So you have to understand, or get back to, we have to get back to the ways of the originators and the rights of the originators. Yeah, original rights, not the copyright. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, this one I kind of responded by saying it's again, it's one that appears to me to be outside today's topic. It says basically, how did the Mukasu have a soul and lack melanin? And did they lack melanin?
The short answer to that question is that basically the Pleiadians, who their design is based upon, who are responsible for their creation, lacked melanin. So they were in the image and created in the image and after the likeness of their overlords. Understood? So therefore they lack melanin. So the Caucasians, in terms of the Adamites who were created, or the original Adamites who were created, lack melanin for those reasons, because their ancestors didn't have it. You understand? In terms of then later, they had a disease implanted into their genes, referred to as leprosy or leproma. Yeah, the Bible talks about it in the context of Hansen's disease, or Ham's son's disease, Genesis 9:25. However, what we're going to read about, or when we get into the parts around I was there, which is here, also in a book called 18 plus 18 plus 1, Genes of Mitochondrial DNA, we learn about, as I say, how this disease was implanted into the genes of the Caucasian, you know, saying as a weapon, to kill their overlords, who saw them as a source of food. So that particular disease, you understand, created, as I say, a albino or double recessive albino version of the Adamite. Do you understand? So when you're looking at the Adam red or ruddy, then you've got the pale, that's a double recessive gene or expression, in the sense of that same species. You understand? Now, have they had soul before in the past? Yes, through mixing. They have had that soul or connection, and some may have that today through mixing. However, there is something referred to, well, as a connecting aspect to the development of human beings on the planet. Today it's referred to as the phylogenetic tree. That phylogenetic tree basically shows how different species on the planet are all interconnected with each other. Do you understand? Like, as we've given this example many times before, the chicken, for example, is the what they call the evolutionary or revolutionary point between where fish's scales or amphibians coming out of the waters of the planet. You understand? Those scales became the feathers of birds. You understand? And the chicken's the halfway point between that. So you see, it has the scales, for example, on its legs, like a reptile. You understand? And it obviously has the obviously feathers like a bird, but it can't fly. You understand? So phylogenetic tree basically shows that all the different life forms on the planet are interconnected with each other. Understood? And the Caucasian took themselves off of that phylogenetic tree. Yeah, so at a certain point, all of the different genetic lines were supposed to mix back in together under something called HAR1. You understand? Which stands for Human Accelerated Region. You understand? And it's one of the characteristics which enables us, for example, to jump interdimensionally. Now, all the different aspects of HAR1 in the root races were supposed to be brought back together under one. The Caucasian, however, took themselves off of the phylogenetic tree by intermixing or doing experiments where they started to put pigs' hearts, for example, to replace the human hearts, and putting other different animal parts in with human beings, which was a violation of nature's rules. You understand? And so for that reason, took themselves off of the phylogenetic tree, and as I say, their soul, they don't have that as that regard because of certain acts, as I say, that they have done, which are anti-nature. You understand? So they have the apparatus, i.e. a lunar plexus, but they don't have a solar plexus to have the physical soul, which is to be burning black by way of the breath, and they don't have the Ba'a soul. They only have the which is the Ifrit being, and they have the Ka'a, which is a spiritual being. They don't have the Ba'a, which is a soul being. So they're trapped on this plane of existence, can't move beyond this physical plane. And when they die, for example, they become a feeding force of energy for those discarnate entities that exist from 1 or 0 to 6 ether. Understood? Yeah, any other questions?
Okay. There was one other question, and I responded by asking them if they could be more specific. It's basically asking what changed. You may have already answered that if it's to the last questioner in the last answer. It just says what changed. So I'm asking to be more specific.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll wait for their response.
Okay.
If it comes in, then feel free to interrupt. Excuse me. So we touched upon Satanists and Luciferians, yeah, and we'll come into that in a bit more detail. This is the extract from Paa Taraq Atlantis, yeah, which I think sets out a couple of points which are quite important for us. So we see here that in verse 98 out of Paa Taraq Atlantis, it says the overlords were brain eaters. They sent greys to hunt mortals and offer them as food for the gods. 99. The brain eater Paa Tanamu of Draco star system, called Drago Man, Leviathan, Dragon, worked with the overlords of the Caucasoid clans. 100. They were Kamau Pleiadians of the constellation of Taurus, called Luciferians, the Karabu children, who became their Elohim gods, Malakim angels, their Rabbim overlords, and their Kohanim teachers. Yeah, so obviously clearly with the stories that you're reading about, yeah, with these tribes of Israel, as they give the story, we know there's a symbolic meaning behind the way they've recorded the stories. But clearly, as I say, we know or understood from when we were teaching you about the reptilians that, and in the last chapter of Malachi, isn't it? Malachi chapter 2, verse 17, how doing acts of evil was good, because the Draconians had devolved down to a level where it wasn't just about the flesh eating, it was about, let's say, extracting energy from the flesh, which basically was produced by fear-driven acts, you understand, or where the adrenaline basically was being secreted into the bloodstream by doing negative acts, fear, you know what I mean, being placed under fear, which they could then derive energy from. Do you understand? So different groups of extraterrestrials requiring or having a taste, let's say, for different body parts of human beings, not just the flesh, but as I say, deriving energy from it, and used to utilize, as I say, the structures or clans of tribes that they had set up, will be orchestrated in a way where we touched upon this. One is producing human beings for sacrifice for this purpose under controlled methods, like, let's say, breeding children to be sacrificed, you understand, later down the line, of course. And then others is children or human beings just being kidnapped, you understand, and say grabbed and taken without any order to it. So you got two types in it: ordered way of doing it, and more disordered way of doing it. So to avoid disorder, tribes and groups come up with mechanisms and ways to either produce and breed young people, children, for this purpose, understand, or people would offer up themselves, or they would give up, you understand, maybe people that they've gone out and kidnapped themselves, and then give them to the gods, so they wasn't taking their own people as a result. And biblically speaking, you can see that Leviathan, or the Levitical priesthood, were clearly the point tribe, understood, and point priests for feeding the gods, understand, who had a taste, of course, for human meat. Now, this is important. So it says in 101, in time, names changed. One language became many tongues. Anuna became Anak, to become Elohim, to become Yahwehim. 102, Adanim, Rabbim, who taught mortals, became Nabim, then El Shaddai, and Nabim, prophets, and El Shaddai, Almighty. Onto Allah, from Eloah onto El, and on. 103, the Overlord's true nature was washed from the minds of mortals. 104, they became gods, then God of fear and trust. Obey God, who is jealous, or you would end up in a burning hell's fire. So this is the issue, isn't it? That as it's been expressed here in 103, is that we've been brainwashed. We've forgotten what those original natures were. Whereas when you look in some of the older cultures, in it, like Mayan culture, you look at the Dogons in Mali, you understand? You look at, as I say, some of the practices around the Druids and what they were dealing with from the Celtic side of things, then you see, okay, this is the more of the nature, where you get it sort of watered down in religion, isn't it? But no one ever asked the question until it was pointed out by the master. What's the nature of, you want Abraham, for example, to submit to you, or test his loyalty, so to speak, but you ask him to put his son on an altar for him to be killed. Do you understand? So what kind of nature is that? That's the question, isn't it? What kind of nature is that? We touched upon it the last time in last class. Yeah? Cain killed his brother for a nothing reason, let's be honest, out of jealousy, you understand, so on and so forth, because he failed a test, or the exam that they put on. But he didn't get killed. He got sent to go and hang out, you understand, in the land of Nod. Yeah, so somebody was, not that disappointed enough, where it was eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, isn't it? Which they teach later down the line in the Torah. It wasn't an eye for an eye. It was basically, go and hang. You want to be a killer? Go and hang out with the other killers in the land of Nod. Do you understand? But in other instances, God kills a person dead. So what's the nature, isn't it, of who's sitting in the seat? Yeah. So that it really puts the term good into question, isn't it? Or
can I interject when you've got a moment?
Yeah, or doing the Lord's work into question. Yeah, because, as I say, we're getting the watered down version of what these religious practices really mean, and we don't really understand the how and why, context, so on and so on. All that's been removed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you said interjected. So the person who is being more specific here, Ed, and he's saying the dynamics between the masculine and the feminine. What's changed? What's caused the change? And there's two more questions after that one.
Well, the dynamic change with the shift of the cycle. So basically, some of these events that we're talking about or going into talk about around 12,000 years ago, there was a shift in the axis of the planet, and a new calendar was formulated to look at how these, from the predominantly these 12, or some say 24 in our own case, 24 constellations, and basically in how they're relating to the energy that we're receiving from these constellations to the planet was being tracked, shifted. And so we went to more over that last 24,000 years cycle period to away from, as nature would have it, matriarchal, in a sense, to this switch to matriarchal, patriarchal. And certainly in the last 6,000 years, the apex of that and the influence of groups of extraterrestrials like the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians, particularly the Anunnaki, shifted everything to more patriarchal. So even in their Bible, God became a he, so on and so forth. And then the role of the woman was downplayed. Do you understand? So, and that's because of the mentality of those groups of extraterrestrials who are patriarchal in nature. Do you understand? And so instead of it becoming a working together scenario or situation, you have a thing where it's more to do with male dominance. And so this is unnatural in Wu-Sabat, and unnatural in nature. You understand? Because the male was created by the woman. The woman was the male was created by the woman, not that he was taken out of the rib of, not the woman was taken out of his rib and created. Yeah, there's this, whilst it may work for authors writing something down in Genesis and have fooled the world that that's the approach to, the reality is that the Y chromosome is 5 times less in size than the X chromosome. So the woman is chromosomally superior to the male. And so the religious thinking over the scientific thinking has replaced scientific and natural thinking, isn't it, over the last 6,000 or so years in the science. And it's only the shift really in these cycles, as in you'll see in the 2012, which is what 2012 symbolizes, which is the females coming back into power. And that's been a shift, as I say, in the axis of the planet, now moving towards, as I say, pointing towards the center of the galaxy, where there's a major black hole, in terms of, 6 to 13,000 years ago, it would have been pointing away. So there's a shift that's taken place on the planet in terms of energy, and it will culminate with this shift back to matriarchal thinking and approach, going back to how it originally was, but that will take around about 6,000 years to reach its a complete apex, in terms of its power. Started, but not quite there yet, but you're seeing it obviously filter through in today's society. Again, you see it being manipulated in social media. I think they really call it the manosphere and all these different types of it, and the, I suppose, equivalent to the female where there's some kind of conflict between the two that we see here, when in actuality the rise of the woman in the context of our rise back to power is how we get there. Do you understand? Because the woman is still in touch solar biologically and lunar biologically with nature, because she still has a monthly cycle which is triggered by cosmological events, isn't it? It's tied in with the 4 face of the moon. So that connection means that when nature transforms, she transforms. And so, as I say, we see where it went wrong, but now what we're seeing is where that connection needs to come back. So it's not for the woman to dethrone the man, you understand, in that context. we must rule, you understand, together, the circle and the square. So you're not going to take back the rulership, but man has to learn, so to speak, or males have to learn, as we have been since the 90s, you understand, about the female characteristics and what's best, you understand, for societal development and the bringing in for us to produce supreme beings once again, and we must do the same. So we're becoming sacred masculine and sacred feminine once again, the circle and the square, both 360 degrees but different, you understand? And so must learn to operate about how we can produce the best out of each other, not through competition but through cooperation. Yeah. What are the other questions?
Yes, the other one from the same person is asking. Sorry. Yes, I thought I was mute. Sorry. Yes. The adrenaline season the meat for them. That's the question.
Not for them, for extraterrestrials, for their overlords.
Okay. And the last one. I think it's the last. Let me just check. Sorry. Have all the 24 accomplishments been accomplished yet?
No. I think we can see that. We've been hindered. So the brother's talking about, or whoever asked the question, excuse me, has been talking about birth of Master Secrets #1. I think it's birth of the Matrix or something like that is the title. So there were 24 accomplishments that we were supposed to achieve in the last 24,000 year cycle. So some of that included time travel, connecting with our ancestors. So a number of things as part of Project 24, which was 12 etheric entities being seeded, female entities being seeded from the Sirius star constellation, and 12 etheric entities being seeded from the Orion star constellation, which is why you see, for example, like the pyramids in Giza, Queen's Chamber is aligned with Sirius, King's Chamber is aligned with Orion. So that was a project to seed life here on the planet Earth, or progression of life here on the planet Earth, understood. And yeah, so we've seen that as part of that, there were 24 accomplishments set out to develop ourselves and the skills that had been pre-programmed within our genes, that we would collectively come together as a race and achieve those accomplishments to be in the image and after likeness of Paa Taraq and regain our ability to travel in and beyond the stars. Understood? We touched upon earlier, I think the quarantine of this planet limits us, of course, our ability to travel intergalactically, which is what our soul, or the Ba'a aspect of our soul, at least, or the Ba'a soul, we have two of them, the Rawuh and the Ba'a soul, allows us to travel, obviously, intergalactically, which the Master Teacher taught you many years ago in the book called Science of Healing. That in actuality, that the human body was in actuality had the capability of turning into a craft. So we're talking about people jumping into crafts and traveling. In actuality, the human body can turn into a craft. You understand? Which I showed you, obviously, in Man for Planet Risk and these books, about even collectively coming together and forming larger crafts by human beings and being able to travel etherically, you understand, here over distances. You also read about that in the Sumerian Bible, where Enki and them came here etherically first, you understand, which we read about in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, yeah, where the Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters, for example. Yeah, that's again people being able to travel here etherically before they came here physically. So these are characteristics and capabilities which are, part of these accomplishments, as one may describe them as. But as it expresses, yeah, we're not in this position for what we have done, but for rather what we have failed to do. So we failed to achieve these accomplishments, which places in a position where we've been subjugated, as opposed to a position which we wasn't hindered, this spell, etc., wasn't cast upon us, then we would be in a position where if these forces came, we'd be strong enough to take them out and defeat them, and have not allowed them, as I say, to intermix in a way where we, understand, brought them in, yeah, and it was like a bit of a Trojan horse, do you understand? So it allowed them in. The culture shifts over time because they've got adverse intentions, yeah, to overthrow where we think they're helping them. So our, how can you say, our compassion, you understand, by way of our emotions, allowed us to let them in. Yeah, but this was it's really signified by way of the Pharaoh Khufu. The incoming of 6 Ether forces to dominate. So no, we haven't achieved the 24 accomplishments yet. Any other questions?
That's all the questions so far.
Okay, so the cycles was upgraded in the hereafter doctrine. Yeah, so you see it in the Holy Tablets, the bridge between religion, and reality. Yes, and remember out of the 7 seals, I think mentioned in Revelation chapter 5, verse 1. Yeah, the 7th seal was the Quran. Then the 8th seal would have been Aratib, received by the Mahdi, and then the 9th seal would have been the Holy Tablet. So the bridge between religion and reality, and then the Matat Afaf Amun talked about earlier when he mentioned to you about the Black Book or the Sacred Records of Atum Ray. Now you're stepping into, you know what I mean, the reality of, now we're getting, so this is recorded, this is how it's written, this is how it was recorded, this is how it was. You understand? So you're getting now into reality of who we are. And then Black Book Part 1 of Black Book Part 1 of 1, which is 19 chapters, we're starting to introduce into the world of quantum physics, and that world we touched earlier, the world of things as opposed to some things. Understood? But the point that was being made here is that they were referring to them as Luciferians, correct? And Satanists that we just read in Holy Tablets chapter 1, tablet 2. Now when this is upgraded in the hereafter doctrine, here we see that Paa Shazum came out of a group of extraterrestrial beings at the Draco star system, Paa Taraq, the Pleiadian star system, called Yahwehim or Luciferians. So in here we see a connection to the Luciferians, yeah, and the Pleiadians, you understand, in this and the Pleiadians, yeah, in relation to them being evolved from those biblical names that we were given, or biblical sounding names, Luciferians, Satanists, you understand, those terminologies. Now it being talked about, yeah, in terms of, now we're telling you, well, okay, we're pinning now another layer behind the door where you're seeing the cause behind the cause and effect, you understand? So these Pleiadians, specific group of extraterrestrials, as we see there, linked back to the Anuna, clearly by way, as we see here, of Enlil, as they refer to him in the Sumerian doctrine there, in the same, which is equivalent, is obviously best from ancient Egypt, you understand, as they call it there, but Enlil or Baal or Baladad in the biblical context. So you're seeing now who is sitting in these positions or seats where these titles have masked, well, who we're dealing with, what's their nature, what do they look like, do you understand? That type of thing, what are their characteristics, yeah, that type of thing, understood, which obviously was being uncovered by way of these things. So I won't go to this in loads of detail because we just obviously covered it in detail there, but I say their thing is to really slow things down, because even Holy Tablets, which is now, or Holy Tablets is, what was it, 1996 originally released, and then had 2 iterations, yeah, but we're now in 2024. So the master being incarcerated means that book not updated to its current form. So their thing is to slow things down. Remember, nature's clock works a certain way, and you know, once we miss certain events, they're missed. It's if you trying to catch a train, for example, and the train is at 5:05. Do you understand? You get there 6 minutes past 5. Well, you've missed the train. You can't go back in the past to catch the 5 minutes past train. You've got to now look for an alternative way to get to your destination. So where the master teacher is it really a lot of the time is 10 years ahead of where we need to be. It's saying to us, do this, do this, do this to be ready for this event. You know what I mean? Get me out so we can set this up, build this, build that, etc. Yeah, so that we're ready, so that when nature is ready to shift, we have done the requisite things necessary for it to aid our transformation and take us to that next level of power. Understood? But we keep missing the certain dates, or we're being hindered by forces in and outside, of course, of the nation, just like Marcus Garvey. You know what I mean? There was agents within and forces without, understood, to stop as they classified it as, maybe touch upon this, yeah, that the COINTELPRO agenda, which started in Garvey's era, is to stop the rise of a black messiah. You understand? So that rising is for that one who would come with this new cycled information, yeah, the spiritual science that would unite us mentally, obviously, and aid that transformation, as we touched upon earlier, from mortals back into deities again, but us really to regain back our spiritual powers. You understand? And really, if you think about it, a lot of the countries that have used any kind of spiritual power or force, like the Haitis of this world and others, have always find themselves under significant subjugation. Do you understand? Not really necessarily. So it appears to be natural disasters, but really more created by weather weapons, which, you know, if you think that's fantastical, well, go and look up, you know, certain treaties have been signed in the 70s, for example, between countries that prohibit the development of these types of weapons, yeah, amongst obviously member countries around the world. You understand? So, you know, this technology exists where they can, as I say, cause tornadoes, you understand, earthquakes and these types of things, yeah, and then come in and appear like the saviour whilst you've devastated a country's infrastructure. So you come in now and rebuild, you understand, and appear like the sort of saviour, which again, all this stuff, yeah, if you really look at it, it's all biblical tactics that we saw, isn't it, of God setting things up to, you know, play the hero or whatever the case may be. You know, so it says, you know, like Moses was sent, isn't it, to the Pharaoh, but then God travelled ahead and hardened the Pharaoh's heart, according to the story. So, you know, it's not like Moses is travelling on a train or, you understand, a plane, or, yeah, this is thousands of miles they're moving across, you know what I'm saying, which takes, you know, in some instances weeks and months to get to a particular destination. Do you understand? So there's all these silly games that get played in relation to this approach that's being taken. So the point that we were saying here, as I say, is just to link, as you see it, was to link the Satanists, Luciferians, to the Pleiadians. Yeah, because we see it in the hereafter. We see it in the hereafter doctrine, and interestingly linked back to these opposing forces that we had recorded on the walls in ancient Egypt, in a sense, like Apep or Apophis, as is referred to in Greek. You understand? And Satuk, or who they refer to as Set. Yeah, you see the word there, substitute. Substitute there, and Satuk was associated, not that he was, but he was associated because he appeared, or he was depicted with a human body, but with the face or the head of this sort of aardvark looking creature who had pale skin. Do you understand? So he was associated with foreign invaders, you know, or foreigners coming into the country. Not that Set also took himself was evil, but he was associated with that. The invaders coming into Egypt that basically could supplant the culture. Now, interesting enough, you see here the hieroglyph of Satuk shown there, and they say that the master's translated this word as substitute and associated with the Hyksos coming in. You understand? where they get that Moses story from, isn't it? Where they occupied a certain region in ancient Egypt for 430 years. So they didn't take over the whole place. They covered, or in one nome, which they resided in. The point is here is that you look at the word substitute there, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because the Jacobites and Jacoban, this is what the Hyksos were known. They had that preface under their names. Yeah, when you look at the word Jacob in the Bible, it means what? To supplant. Yeah, that's what the name Jacob means, which is, again, remember the story with Jacob and Esau, which he tried to manipulate genetically the sheep. Yeah, so he could get more of Esau's sheep by manipulating the breeding process of the sheep, so that the more of them looked like the sheep that he was rearing versus the ones that Esau had. So this is all say symbolic of events that are taking place where you've got, say, invaders coming in, or these lepers, of these who are called
Objection again when you can.
Yeah, called Adamites and Canaanites, do you understand? But in our records, and the proper real records maybe are called the Hyksos dynasty, or the Hekakasut, in that regard. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not seeing your screen. You mentioned some visuals, but it's not on my screen.
Have we stopped sharing?
I
wasn't aware unless
think
we.
so. Yeah.
No, I think I'm still sharing. So I'm not sure if it's at your end.
Well, I can't. All I can see is your name across the black background.
No, I'm definitely. I think I'm definitely sharing, so I can see it on the secondary screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No problem. No problem. So, okay. So we're at 4:30 now. Let me just see what we quickly cover. Right. Is it worth doing this quickly? Yeah, let's just do this one quickly if we want to stay on for another half hour, 20 minutes. Let's just do this quickly. Just part this recap, and I'll crack into the next time. The next time we're on, we're going to crack straight into where we want to be. Yeah. So so people can see the pictures. Let's get into this then, just quickly. I'll just read this so you just see just a bit of an overview. So this is a Paa Taraq. It's called Sarabu Kharabu, and from a different vantage point, just helps set the context of what was taking place. And then, as I said, we'll go into this kind of events that took place 12,000 years ago, which we've been setting up really from parts 1 to 8. Now it says 1, Likum Miria Nawapum Yasar, beloved Nawapian family, my Kharadu, children. So a lot of these things, people say, well, why is he referring to you as your children? It's because in our culture, this being named Yanun, us as ancient Egyptians referred to as Tahuti, in terms of that regard, has given birth to the mindset. Understood? So, giving birth to the mindset, the Wu-Sabat mindset, the Munwapu mindset, the Musbatu mindset. It's why I refer to as the children, because it's birthing a new way of thinking, in the same, which obviously is birthing a new us. 2, I recalled this most holy scripture, Paa Taraq, the way, as sent down to you all from above as a true guidance, Paa Taraq, the way to live. So when we were going through, transitioning, I suppose, out of the religious degrees into our own stuff, we learned. So when you look at the way the Muslims pray today, for example, in Islamic degree, they have 3 primary positions. Yes, but seek out a book called Paa Ashutat. It shows you where those positions came from. We had 9 positions in our prayer system, called Paa Ashutat, and a certain way we used to pray as well when we prayed as a group. So we prayed individually, but then the prayer system would change, as we would pray in a group type setting, Understood? And it will be led by three priests who occupied the three positions in terms of leading the prayer, excuse me, which symbolized or was tied in to the three stars known as Orion's belt, in the sense Al-Nidam, Al-Nitak, and Mintaka. Understood? Sit in those positions. Now, one of the things that used to be said was in a chant that was leading into the prayer or set up by these priests, they would say Ashutat Paa Taraq ila Panitirat. Ashutat Paa Taraq ila Panitirat. And they would say it 19 times. Yeah. And what it basically translates is Ashutat prayer. Ashutat ila Panitirat is the road or the way to the deities. Yeah. So Taraq was Taraq was basically the in the language Taraq, with a T-A-R-U-G, Taraq, the A-U symbolized basically in its adjective form. Understood? So what we didn't realize at the time is that we were chanting or praying for that guidance. Understand? Yeah, because we would say prayer is a road to the deities. The road there was the same in adjective form, and then here when we got the physical book Paa Taraq with the double A, now it's in noun form. So we were asking our ancestors for something that we didn't know we needed. Do you understand? And so years later, Paa Taraq became the Taraq, as in the road or the way. Now it physically manifested as this knowledge or doctrine. So this is why I'm saying was sent down to you all from above. Well, the master teacher taught us to request it, and then it became. Do you understand? So all interlinked. 3. So these are the Sajalat records of the old days. It will tell of strange things. 4. Of great happenings in the Wakatat, times of your Salafu ancestors. 5. Those who lived in the beginning. 6. All of you can know Paa Taraq the way. 7. All of you can know the times, which is declared in this Paa Taraq the way. 8. Your Salafu ancestors, Paa Natharu, had their birth in events and times in places here. Excuse me, in places here on earth. 1 second. Okay, back. So, and it says, Paa Natharu had their birth in events and times in places here on earth. 9. Paa Sabatu, the host, the Ennead from Atum to Tafnatat, Wu-Shawar, Tefnot and Shu, Natatat, Wu-Gabab, Nut and Geb, Ashtat, Wu-Asar, Isis and Osiris, and here, Isis and Osiris, Wu, Nabab, Tat, Hatat, Nephthys, and Set, the 9 minds. Yeah, so this here, but Paa Sabatu, we've evolving from us in the waters, which is the Ogdoad phase, understood, and then the shift, obviously, of us onto land, which is in this case here, or Enneads to Greek referred to as, but the Paa Sabatu phase. So we're in the waters of the planet, and you've got 4 sets of deities, which is really 9 because it all comes out of Atum. 4 sets of us in the waters, mermen, merwomen, and then we progress onto land, as the Paa Sabatu, do you understand, or land-based amphibious creature. Oops. Now it says 11. Now you read 1. Once upon a time. 12. This world, had 4 worlds within a world. This is the 4th. So what that's describing as is that each of the 6,000 years cycles within the 24,000 year equinox cycle is considered a world. Understood? Yeah, so that's what it's describing. And this was describing at the time was the last one of the last 6,000 years. Yeah, we're now in a new 24,000 year cycle. So 13, world you are in, this is a fourth, the world you're in now. 14, each world was of 6,000 years each. 15, altogether that is 24,000 years. 16, over those years this planet was born and died and reborn. 17, excuse me, beings from older Tapalat worlds from other star systems used to come here for their own reasons. 18, some came to live in caverns. 19, some came to live beneath the Mayat, forgive me, waters. 20, some came on vacation, not to stay. Some came to hunt. 22, some came to retrieve natural minerals. 23, some came for bara, food to eat. 24, some came to breed with creatures here. 25, there were many that came out of the waters and over time became many species. 26, they found here many kinds of creatures. 24, all protectors with and by the cube within the cube. 28, there were bovines, felines, canines, reptilians, foulings, simians, and evolved sapiens and insects of many kinds. So here, all protectors within and by the cube within a cube is talking about, I suppose, the center of the planet, which the Kaaba, see the Kaaba in Mecca, understand, is one of those locations where a lot of these experiments were shown off, so to speak, in an Olympic style event by these groups of extraterrestrials. Yeah, so that cube in a cube, or the Kaaba, where the Kaaba is located today, which would be at one point would have been the middle of the planet, hence why you have east of middle and should be east of west. You understand? They say Middle East, yeah, correct. They say, but they don't then talk about Middle West, is because of this location, which is in the middle of the planet, yeah, where there is obviously a cube there, which is a basic pyramid on its side. 29, many came to this planet from afar. 30, from Andromeda. 31, from Pleiades. 32, from Orion. 33, from Sirius. 34, from Draco. 35, from Aldebaran. 36, from Arcturus, 37, from Zeta Reticuli. 38, from Ilion. So Ilion, for those not familiar, this is mentioned in the Quran, Ilion, which ties into Razak or Rizq, the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy. Rizq or Razak or Ilion is the 3 central suns, yeah, within the Orion belt. Yeah, so one of the places we relocated was in the Orion star constellation, and so Ilion is those 3 central suns, another trisolar system, obviously, which we had in the 19th galaxy. Rizq was the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy. Excuse me. Orion is in the 18th galaxy, or parts of it. It's predominantly in 18. Excuse me. Gremlins in the throat. Just bear with me. Yeah, so in the 18th galaxy, but Ilion is those 3 central suns, known as in the Orion's belt. Yeah. 39, and many others, some sub-beings or grafted beings. 40, some were good and agreeable, while others were bad and disagreeable. 41, some ate all kinds of flesh, even Homo sapiens flesh. 42, yet there was order. Yeah, we touched upon this earlier. 43, those of Aldebaran moved to Orion and set up what was called Ashtar Command. These albinos worship one, Atar, deity of light and fire. It's a whole actual facts dealing with that. Yeah. 44, and those Sahat Orion set up was called Marzak, Rizq, Command. Yeah, so we just touched upon that. Yeah, those 3 central suns. 45, these too kept order for many Tapalat worlds. 46. Many of the beings who came here would take on physical form while here or incarnate. 47. The highest of all was called Paa Taraq, over all, which means overseers. 48. Not just this Kawak planet or Wahu Makwan universe, yet the Kathir Makwam Act multiverses over the movement of the cube within the cube. 49, which is it's also describing a vortex. 49. They would visit each other's worlds and planets, some to stay, others to exchange resources and minerals as well as knowledge. 50. So there was what was called a silence in the world of worlds over all. 51. By the time we came down to the third world cycle of this planet 12,000 years ago. 52. Some beings who wished to rule caused disorder. 53. Many came to Earth without permission and would abduct creatures and eat them. 54. Some to steal natural resources off this Kawak planet. 55. In time, two groups decided to work together. The albino race of Kamau Pleiadians or the Partananu, the Dragonians. 56. They would abduct Homo sapiens out of Ganao, which is Africa, or Afafraye Ka'a, the little people of that land. 57. They bred them on Mars with Zeta Reticuli and made many sub-races of Reticulan, or Murmadu Greys or Marcabians. 59. And used the Murmadu Greys as slaves to abduct for them. 60. Partananu, the Dragonians, ate flesh, human flesh, and drank Daman, blood of all kinds. 61. At first the Kamau Pleiadians did not eat human, Jasad flesh, being they are of humanoid form. 62. Yet they have thin, flat, Farah fur, colourless, their Ayantwi eyes are colourless, and their Bashar skin is transparent. 63. They have 3 tribes. 1. Molokim, Melkonim, and Melekim. 64. And the Partananu, the Dragonians, many tribes and groups. 65. Some agreeable, while most disagreeable. 66. The beings of Aldebaran also have transparent pale skin, rubbery texture. Their fur is yellow thin, and their eyes appear blue depending on where they are. 67. They are humanoids. They are the 2 tribes, biblically obviously called seraphims, and cherubims. 69. In times of old, if beings were found here and did not have permission, there would be fights in the skies between these beings. So note that this fact. 70. Many evil beings would start wars in Paa Taraq, the heavens. This is recorded in many records of people on earth and in the past. 71. Wars or fighting in the skies between gods, angels, devils, and demons. 72. In the past, beings from above were told, do not mix your DNA, your genes, with Homo erectus, Homo genus, or Homo sapien. This is not a good thing. 73. While some of the sons of these sky beings came to Earth for vacation, there were 200 in all. 74. They saw, these are known in the Sumerian doctrine as the Igigi, those who stayed and observed. 74. They saw human beings having Janus sex in their fields and Majanat gardens. 75. And they became sexually attracted to female humanoids. 76. These 200 killed their men. These 200 killed their men and raped the women. 77. Then returned to the Paa Taraq, the skies. 75. But in time, there was talk of the rape of the daughters of humans and killing of their men. 79. Yet as worst as that was that these 200 daughters of humanoids became pregnant with the child of these cherubim. As you read in the Harabu Hebrews records, Paa Taraq, the Torah, the laws, yeah, Genesis 5, verse 4, it says, in the days of the earthling Adamite, after he had begat Seth, were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. 81, and you see recorded in the same scroll, Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. 82, and it came to pass, when earthling Adam began to multiply on the surface of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of the Elohim gods saw that the daughters of earthlings, that they were good, and what they were doing, and they, the sons of the Elohim, 83, just took them as wives, all of which they required and selected. 84, so as the word of this act spread up to Paa Taraq, the heavens, they were asked, did you violate the laws of sex with humanoids? 85, they all, 200 of them, lied and denied, claiming they did not have sex with the daughters of humanoids. 86, when the Haradu children were born of these little women. 87, the sons born of them were tall in height. 88, excuse me, and this made it clear that the 200 had lied, for these sons of the sons were 89 demigods, or Gabaru or Gibor, and like the Karabu cherubim, very disagreeable and wicked. 90, and also, as also recorded in the records of the Paa Harabu Hebrews of Mesopotamia, Genesis chapter 6 verses 3 to 5, they were fallen in the earth in those days, and also after that, the sons of the Elohim raped the daughters of earthlings and gave birth to the children, and these children turned out to be Gibor, mighty strong men in stature, and became known by all who their fathers were. And the Elohim saw the wickedness of these offsprings were great in the earth. They raped, they killed, they took, and it was their very evil nature. In their mind is evil and wickedness. Every imagination of their thoughts, of their hearts, was evil continually. Yeah, so this is I'll give you a right translation by the master teacher. It sets the context of what that biblical record was speaking about. 91, and the sons also would eat human flesh of these cherubim. These Giborim became the angels of the religion of Mesopotamia. 92, the fallen ones wished to return to the Patat skies, yet were rejected again and again. 93, and they did war in heaven. 94, yet and still was cast out of all the star constellations and made to dwell on Tahat earth. 95, the sons of these Elohim, disagreeable, mixed with the cursed seed of Canaan, Canaanites, to birth the Celtic, Salalu races and their religions of Wakanu, Wiccan, and Druids, and became monotheism, Abrahamism of Mesopotamia. 96, these are the Mudwa'u, evil ones of earth, and how they came to be given 6,000 years from 4000 BCE to rule. 97, it ended in the year 2000, and Paa Taraq, the Dragonians, came to abduct for food. They came as the Anakim, sons of the sons of Raphaim, also called Anunnaki. Some of the Anunnaki, excuse me, are agreeable. 98, they are shapeshifters and can take on whatever form. Now we know, for example, that those Anunnaki got that shape-shifting capability from the Pleiadians. You understand? As we read about in some of the early parts of this class. 99. In 2000, in Nome, Alaska, their rapture occurred under the guise of night. 100. These have become the food for their gods, and so many more missing every day as Parkakasu, the Caucasoids, tried to appeal to their overlords who left them. And we talked about the abandonment of the Pleiadians in that regard, but not the Dragonians. 101. You, Nagaru, and Nawapian are no longer under their power of control. 102, their tones no longer affect you unless you have retuned your bodily vibration to theirs. 103, thus you will be affected by their residual tones or broadcasts. 104, some have become food for the gods, others their children. 105, the number of 144,000 had not been reached by the appointed deadline. Now they required supply 300,000 a day, or they will be food for the gods. 106, the Kamau Pleiadians are their overlords, who are ruled by the Paa Taraq Draconians, and were on their menu. Yeah, Revelation 19:18. Yeah, talking about this rapture, and that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, of them both that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Yeah, so this is talking about that rapture. Yeah, how it means something different to what it means to us. Yeah, 6 and the 9 way of looking at things. 107. The Kamau Pleiadians in turn created Parkakasu, the Caucasoids, as a replacement, as in meal replacement. So remember how Satuk, as you can see, was associated with foreign peoples. Yeah, but his name meant substitute. Overstood, yeah, because as we start to get into the story, as you can see, isn't it? Yeah, that the Pleiadians created an alternate source of food, yeah, to replace them as the food source for these Draconians. 108. Many people are reported missing all over the world now more than ever, and most are never returned, as they have become part of someone's menu. Yeah, menu. So you can see there, menu is men, like in Sabatic. Well, it's a different word for men, but it'd be men, plural. You understand? So, or pluralized. Yeah, so it is a coincidence that the two are spelt in that way. You understand? Yes, it is a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It is a coincidence, or two incidents that are linked and connected with each other. So that Paa Taraq is actually a very good summarization of what we've been teaching or explaining over parts 1 to 8 and now into 9, which then now leaves us free to go into the detail of what these incidents that took place, which led to excuse me, certain wars in the skies, and why certain amount of monuments on the planet don't work anymore because the planet was thrown off of its axis. And so at those times, isn't it, we had learned to build structures and monuments that were able to take advantage of solar energy, not just from the sun 93 million miles away, but from the 24 constellations, 12 with 2 positive and negative, in the same, the 24 constellations, where we were able, when the planet was in a more perpendicular axis, to take advantage of multitude amounts of cosmic energy that would hit the planet at certain points and powered, as I say, many of our structures across the planet. Okay, so I think that's a good place to stop, but is there any final questions before we close?
I don't see any further questions at this point. Thank you. And just before you go and sign off, I would like to experiment with this sharing screen, because I can't see your screen. So as you close, can we just stay on live whilst I do that?
Okay, no problem. Okay, all right, appreciate everybody's time. So we're back again, I think first week in November. What date's that now?
I think it's the 3rd of November.
3rd of November, thank you for saying that. So 3rd of November will be the next class. It may be another topic, but we'll certainly revisit this I Was There, which was here, part 10. We'll endeavour to get all the previous parts on our YouTube channel, so we're a bit behind. And the previous classes, I think, that have gone on since, just to bring us all up to date. So I think there's a Mind, Mafkuzat, I think, Image of the Beast. There's a few classes which we've still got to upload, which are available if you scroll through our Facebook page as well. So people can't wait for them. But appreciate your time today. So we'll stop there. And as I say, if you need to check us out, United Sabians Worldwide, check out the website for your local bookstore if you really need the books that we have conveyed today. If there's any specific questions on that, hit us on our Facebook page. We'll pick up any comments or questions as a result from that. All right, appreciate everybody's time today. Take care all, and we will see you soon.
Okay, I'm going to hit that share button.
1 second, let me just close the class. 1 second.
Okay.